Everyone stares at the flight attendant as she hastily walks past the passengers. She ignores any request that comes to her and rushes to the cockpit. Everyone looks at each other confused. Is there a problem with the plane? Behind all these worried people, one man is sitting patiently, waiting for his plan to unfold. No one knew the danger they were about to be in. It's Thanksgiving. Everyone is boarding a plane from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington for the holidays. Everything seemed like a typical day at the airport, except for when D.B. Cooper walked in. No one noticed him, and no one suspected anything out of him. He is a man of mystery. And when I say mystery, I mean D.B. Cooper isn't his actual name. Until this day, no one knows his real identity. All we know is that he bought a ticket under the name of Dan Cooper. But the media came into the picture and started telling this story portraying him as D.B. Cooper. And ever since then, he was known by this name. He was described by witnesses as a middle-aged man in his mid-40s. He was wearing a dark business suit with a black raincoat. He wore a white shirt and a thin black tie. The flight was short, 37 minutes to be exact. So nobody figured that something terrible was going to happen. He boarded a Boeing 727, carrying nothing but a black briefcase and a brown paper bag. Back then, there wasn't any background checking or luggage scanning for safety measures. You just walk in, grab your seat, and be done. He strategically took a seat in the last row and ordered some beverages just as the plane was ready for takeoff. In a few minutes, the pilot announces that they're ready to fly. The passengers on board are expecting to munch on some delicious turkey and be with their families in less than an hour. Cooper had other plans and waited until the plane was in mid-flight. He noticed that everyone was minding their own business. He had a note with him and waited for the flight attendant to approach him so that he could give it to her. Her seat was directly behind him, so once she was nearby, he handed her the note. At first, the flight attendant didn't make much of the note, thinking that the middle-aged man was just handing her his phone number. But then, he leaned in towards her and told her to read it. Her face turned white. She couldn't tell whether this was a prank or he was serious. But she looked at him, and he wouldn't blink. The note was hinting that he was carrying something devastating in his luggage. To keep everyone safe, he demanded $200,000 by 5 p.m. It might not seem like a lot of money to demand given you're in a position of power, but back then it was a lot. That value now would be around $1.4 million. He also requested 2 front parachutes and 2 main parachutes to be worn on his back. The flight attendant passed the message to the pilot, who made the request through the radio. At first, no one noticed anything, but then news caught on about Cooper's plans. They noticed how the flight attendant was jittery and uncomfortable. Once they landed in Seattle, Cooper wasn't done. He seemed confident in his plan according to the people on board. They brought him the money and refueled the plane so that he can continue with his plan. They also brought the parachutes as he demanded. He was meticulous in the order in which his demands were met. He wouldn't let anyone off the plane unless the money was brought in. He asked for 4 civilian parachutes that the authorities brought from a skydiving school. Once he received his parachutes, he allowed the passengers to leave. The only people left on the plane were 3 flight members and 3 cabin crew. Cooper was losing his patience since refueling the plane was delayed. On top of that, they didn't deliver the money to him in a knapsack as he asked. According to witnesses, he was a calm person and didn't lash out at anyone. But eventually, the plane took off. No one knew what his plan was. He showed the flight plan to the pilots and told them to fly toward Mexico City as slowly as possible and to remain at around 10,000 feet above the ground. The flight route was well designed, like someone who had aviation experience in the past. He told them to leave the landing gear deployed during takeoff and mid-flight, and for the cabin to remain unpressurized. His plan was in motion, but there was another problem. Cooper had been informed that the plane could only travel another 1,000 miles with the amount of fuel given. That means he couldn't make it to Mexico. After much pondering, Cooper decided that they would have to stop for another refueling. They decided to land at Reno Tahoe International Airport in Nevada. Cooper knew that this would stop him from running away with the money, so he told everyone to wait near the cockpit. He was now alone where 35 other passengers would be sitting. It's only been 4 or 5 minutes since the plane took off from Seattle. The pilots received a warning red light flashing, showing that the internal pressure has changed. A witness recalls peeking at him, tying the money to his waist as he strapped on the parachute. Some of the cabin members asked him if he needed any help through the intercom. He simply replied no, and that was the last thing Cooper ever said to them. Once the stairs were deployed out of the tail of the plane, the back end suddenly shifted upward, but the pilot was experienced enough to keep it flying level. They would constantly announce to Cooper that they were about to land and that they needed him to close the aft stairs. But he wasn't responding. No one from the crew went back to see where he was. They landed safely with the stairs still deployed. The authorities rushed to the scene to sweep out the area in case he was still there. But after 30 minutes, there was no sign of him. They can confirm that Cooper had jumped out of the plane with the money strapped to him via a parachute in the pitch-black night. And since that day, Cooper was never seen again. It's not clear whether he made it to Mexico or not, and no evidence shows whether he survived or not. Some of the money with the same serial numbers given to him was found in Washington, but that's the only trace of him. Either he made it back to Washington, or the money was found somewhere and spent by the finder of the loot. If he's around today, then he'd be in his mid-90s, which equally means he might not be around today. It's not like it was a complete dead end. Throughout the years, many people became obsessed with D.B. Cooper, that they came to the authorities to claim they were the ones who did it. But they were just seeking attention. Who wouldn't want to be the hero in this? The authorities even believed he could have been Canadian, since Cooper was named after a comic book hero who used to jump out of planes to escape danger. So many theories popped out of thin air, but nothing was conclusive. There was a famous sketch of Cooper, but it's hard to truly identify the man. Cooper became a celebrity and a hero to some. Some people even launched a Cooper Con, where fans of the mystery man would meet up together and share their theories and so-called evidence of his presence. The truth is, we still don't know. In 2016, the authorities decided not to pursue D.B. Cooper anymore. They claimed it was too time-consuming and one of the most exhaustive investigations in their entire history. All we know is that this incident changed the entire way we approach air travel forever.
Hey, look at this stunning futuristic interior. It's a long studio room with a low ceiling, white walls, and windows overlooking the forest. And there's also a large panoramic window in the corner. You can easily invite hundreds of guests here, and they will all be impressed. So what, would you like to buy or rent this spot? Oh, there's another minor nuance. This house is an airplane. Unfortunately, you can only fly somewhere on it if you invest a couple of $1 million for repairs, but it's possible to live here. A resident of Oregon, Bruce Campbell, created this place. He turned a giant Boeing 727 into his home, where he spends about 6 months every year. Bruce installed 2 bathrooms and a shower, made a kitchen, and equipped this place with electricity. It has everything you need for a comfortable stay. But the most incredible thing is that you can create precisely the same house. To understand how to do this, let's look at Bruce's story. As a teenager, he was watching TV when he saw a report of an aircraft boneyard. These iron birds amazed him and inspired him to create a new home. Growing up, Bruce began to study electrical engineering and always remembered his teenage dream. In the 70s, he bought 10 acres of land in the woods near the town of Hillsboro, Oregon. This area is approximately equal to 8 football fields. After that, he began to look for a plane. In 1999, he hired a rescue company to help him find a Boeing. Soon, they found a 200-seat passenger aircraft in Greece. Since the plane was already out of order and no one would fly it, Bruce bought it for little money. It was just $100,000. The amount is small, considering that a new Boeing costs about $100 million. Airport staff removed the engine and fuel from the plane, disassembled it, and sent it to Oregon. After the logistics problems were solved and the plane ended up in the woods, Bruce began to turn it into a house. The repair work lasted several years. When everything was ready, the media found out about Bruce and made him a celebrity. He showed that even such gigantic things as an airplane could be recycled. Bruce invites anyone to his house to show that airplanes can be used for cheap housing. The advantages of such a house are that the airplane's outer layer can protect from cold, moisture, wind, and sun. Every year in the US, several hundred aircraft break down. People transport them to the aircraft boneyard, where these planes are waiting for repairs or turning into scrap metal. And many of them are in good condition. Another unusual house is located in Tokyo, Japan. It's definitely not your choice if you go to relax alone or think that home is a place where no one can bother you. Welcome to the transparent house. It looks pretty stylish. There are huge panoramic windows without curtains and no walls and doors between the rooms. There are a bunch of large shelves and ladders inside. You can climb, jump, and hang here. The height of the house is 3 floors. It looks like a modern urban treehouse. This place is open to everyone. And now, take a look at the most fantastic treehouse. Can you see it? No? No wonder. This house is almost invisible in the forest because of its mirrored surface. It's called Mirror Tree House and is located in Sweden. At night with the lights off, this small building completely merges with nature. Now turn on the lights in the windows and take a closer look. This is a stylish and modern building where anyone can spend the night. You need to pay for it though because it's a hotel. Here's another tree house. More precisely, it's a huge building built on several trees. It's called Minister's Tree House and is located in Crossville, Tennessee. It's considered to be the biggest treehouse in the world. It's built from recycled wood. It occupies almost 5 floors in height and has several rooms. If elves lived in the forest, then this house would be their bank or the administration of the woods. Let's get down from the trees to the ground, more precisely, under the ground. It's not even a house, but a small town. And every building here is pretty unusual. You won't see this town from the outside. All houses, cafes, post offices, and other buildings are located in the pits from which pipes protrude, releasing steam. Welcome to Coober Pedy, Australia. Enter any house and see that there is ground instead of the usual walls and wallpaper. Such unusual architecture is because this place is the world's largest reserve of opal. Most of these minerals, which are sold all over the world, are mined in this city. Opal was first found in these lands in 1915. Since then, people have been coming here to search for precious stones. There are no mining companies here because it's impossible to determine large deposits of opal with the help of technology. Therefore, people mine it manually with picks and shovels. This work is quite long and difficult. So, the town residents rent a place where they dig and build a house. Spread your arms in different directions. That's the width of our next house. The distance from one wall to the other is less than the length of your body. It looks tiny, but people are happy to live here. Welcome to the Current House. The narrowest house in the world is located in Poland. On the streets of Warsaw, you will easily notice it. It's like it's stuck between two buildings. Everything is pretty cute and stylish inside. The white interior adds a feeling of extra space. The Current House serves as a transit point for travel writers. If you're working on a book, this place will be a great source of inspiration for you. This house looks like something from another planet. It's called Robert Bruno's Steel House. It stands on 4 legs, has a strangely shaped window, and is made of metal. This strange house is located in Ransom Canyon, Texas. This is the creation of the sculptor Robert Bruno. He built it from the 70s until 2008. He used about 150 tons of blackened steel and made every detail by hand. Unfortunately, the sculptor passed away before he could complete his masterpiece. There's a toilet house in South Korea, close to Seoul. This big building looks like a giant toilet bowl. It's made of steel, white concrete, and glass. The purpose of this house is to promote the hygiene and sanitation of toilets. Many diseases are spread because of poor cleaning. Inside the toilet, you will find 2 guest rooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bathrooms. And to rent the whole building, you need to pay about $50,000. Looking at this house in one of the alleys of London, it may seem to you that the building is about to fall apart. The house was built in the 16th century and originally didn't look like this. But in 1687, the city council ordered the demolition of the building to free space for something else. The house was almost destroyed, but its owner sued the city council. He won the case and the council was obliged to restore the house. But they did it in a hurry, using cheap materials. For many years, the wood has been bending and the house has got such an unusual shape. Let's end our realtor's journey with this fun house. People who love skateboarding will be delighted to visit this place. Welcome to Skateboard House Malibu, California. You don't leave your home to start riding. The whole house has a circular curved shape and there's no corners in it. There are beds and tables here, which you can also use for tricks.
The cabin shuddered with a loud bang. The cold air rushed in, and the oxygen mask dropped down. The 117 terrified passengers were staring at a 5-foot hole that ruptured their Boeing 737-300. One of them sent a text to his wife saying, "Plane is going down, I love you." It started as a regular flight from Phoenix to Sacramento on April 1, 2011. Takeoff and initial climb-out went as usual. But as the plane approached its cruising altitude of 34,000 feet, one of the ceiling panels fell down. A couple of seconds later, the captain informed everyone that the cabin had lost pressurization and instructed passengers to put on their oxygen masks. The sound of rushing wind grew louder. The captain quickly declared an emergency to air traffic control and was granted permission for an emergency descent. The pilots brought the aircraft down to 11,000 feet, where the air pressure was high enough to keep enough oxygen in the body tissues. Soon after, flight attendants reported an injury and a 2-foot hole in the fuselage. The pilots then requested to descend further to 9,000 feet. Ground control directed them to the nearest airport capable of handling a 737. It was Yuma International Airport. One of the flight attendants rushed to make an interphone call to the pilots or a PA announcement instead of immediately putting on his oxygen mask, so he lost consciousness, fell, and broke his nose. Other than that, there were luckily no injuries or major damage. The plane landed successfully and all the passengers survived. As it turned out later, it all happened because one of the joints failed much earlier than Boeing's engineers expected. Another plane that got into serious trouble was carrying 440 passengers and 29 crew members, 5 of whom were pilots. The flight was going from London to Sydney with a stopover in Singapore. It completed the first leg of the journey without a problem, took on fuel, more passengers, and a new crew to carry on to Australia. It took off and moved southeast across the strait toward Indonesia, passing over the densely populated island of Batam. After 4 minutes in the air, right after passing an altitude of 7,000 feet, one of the engines failed. Fragments of a turbine disc were tearing through its wings and fuselage in multiple places. The Big Bang severely damaged every critical system on board, including the flight controls, fuel tanks, hydraulics, and pneumatics. With a flood of failure warnings and an aircraft in unknown condition, the flight crew had to quickly assess the situation and make the right decisions to bring the massive jet down safely. They also had to deal with malfunctioning landing gear, a loss of braking power, and an engine that refused to shut down. Against all odds, they managed to land the plane flawlessly. All 469 passengers and crew walked away without a single injury. As it turned out later, an oil pipe in one of the engines had walls that were slightly too thin, and it led to all this. On May 24, 1988, TACA International Flight 110 took off from Belize City, heading to New Orleans with 38 passengers and 7 crew members aboard. The aircraft was new and everything was going smoothly until the plane approached New Orleans and encountered severe thunderstorms. The pilots tried their best to navigate through the storm, but as they descended through thick clouds at 16,500 feet, both engines suddenly lost power. The plane was gliding toward the ground through extreme rain and hail with no thrust. The pilots tried to restart the engines using airflow, but even when they turned them back on, they didn't produce enough of it to reach the airport. The pilots realized they wouldn't make it to New Orleans International Airport, so they declared an emergency and considered a water landing in the Louisiana wetlands. Air traffic controllers suggested an alternate airport, but the plane didn't have enough altitude or speed to reach it. But then the first officer noticed a grassy levee that could work as a runway. The captain quickly changed course and managed to do the impossible and landed the plane on the narrow strip of grass. It suffered minimal damage, and every passenger and crew member walked away unharmed. On October 16, 1956, Pan Am Flight 6 was on the final leg of an around-the-world journey when it took off from Honolulu, Hawaii for San Francisco. Everything seemed normal on the 4-engine propeller-driven aircraft until about 1:20 a.m., when the number 1 engine began to malfunction. The first officer tried to reduce power and lower the flaps to slow the plane down. It was impossible because the propeller continued to windmill and created extra drag. The crew was struggling to keep control of the plane, but then the number 4 engine also started failing. Soon it began backfiring, so they had to shut it down completely. Now running on just 2 engines, the plane couldn't maintain speed or altitude. They did some math and figured they didn't have enough fuel to reach San Francisco or return to Honolulu. That's when the captain radioed an emergency call. He knew that it would be too dangerous to try a water landing in the dark, so the captain decided to keep the plane in the air until dawn. He guided the aircraft toward a Coast Guard cutter stationed in the Pacific. When it was above the ship, the plane circled at 2,000 feet, then climbed up again to burn extra fuel and make it lighter. The captain asked passengers sitting in the back and near the engines to move forward. As dawn broke and waves started rising, he knew it was time. The crew made the final approach. The plane's tail snapped off upon impact and the nose dipped underwater. But thanks to their careful planning and the swift response of rescue boats, every passenger and crew member was safely rescued before the aircraft sank. Southwest Airlines Flight 1380 from New York's LaGuardia Airport to Dallas Love Field on April 17, 2018, was carrying 144 passengers and 5 crew members. At 32,000 feet, the left engine suddenly blew up and its pieces were flying around. The wing and fuselage were damaged and shattered a window in row 14. This caused rapid decompression. The pilots immediately began an emergency descent and changed course toward Philadelphia International Airport. The plane tilted hard to the left. Alarms started going off. The pilots put on their oxygen masks and fought to regain control. But even after getting it back on track, the damage made it incredibly difficult to fly. When the captain found out one of the passengers needed immediate medical help, she tried to speed things up and managed to land safely in Philadelphia. Sadly, even that and all the efforts of the flight attendants didn't help, and the passenger who was sitting in row 14 passed away. But thanks to the quick thinking and skills of the pilot and flight attendants, a much bigger disaster was prevented. Air Transat Flight 236 was cruising from Canada to Portugal when 3 hours and 46 minutes into the journey, a fuel leak developed in the right engine. The pilots didn't realize it at first. They thought faulty sensors were giving them incorrect readings. For over an hour, they continued flying as normal, until they realized something was seriously off and diverted to the Azores for an emergency landing. By then, it was almost too late. The right engine failed when they still had over 170 miles to go. 75 miles out, the left engine also gave out, so the plane was completely powerless at 34,500 feet. The crew warned air traffic control that they might have to ditch into the dark and rough waters of the Atlantic Ocean. The impact could have shattered the plane, and the people on board would have minimal chances to survive. The pilots didn't give up and managed to glide nearly 75 miles and safely touch down. The moment the wheels hit the runway, the crew immediately started an emergency evacuation. Everyone on board survived, and they set a world record. The flight, later nicknamed the Azores Glider, became the longest passenger aircraft glide without engines ever recorded. Wow!
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the pilot of your plane speaking. Please fasten your seatbelts and stay calm. Don't worry, everything's fine. We're just falling! Ah! Okay, don't panic. Yes, we're falling, but the landing is gonna be great. And do you know why?
Because this is a video about the most incredible landings with happy endings. So, imagine this situation. You're in a giant passenger Boeing. The plane is flying from Montreal to Edmonton at an altitude of tens of thousands of feet. Weather is good. There's no turbulence. But then, you notice a strange silence. You don't understand what's happening. Exactly. The sound of engines is gone. And do you know why? Because they stopped working right in the air. The plane has run out of fuel. It'll take you a couple of minutes to get to the nearest gas station, if you fly straight down. It's a real accident that happened on July 23, 1983. That flight got nicknamed the Gimli Glider. During the fueling of the aircraft, the crew confused the measurements. They thought they were pouring American gallons, when it was actually liters. The pilots realized the mistake when they were already in the sky when the fuel had run out. They didn't panic and put the aircraft into the optimal mode to increase its flight range. One of them knew that the Gimli Air Force Base was nearby. There was a small runway there. At that moment, it was filled with some garbage and carts. The pilot contacted the base and warned them about the emergency landing. The employees of the base cleared the runway in a matter of minutes. The plane began to land very smoothly. The pilots controlled the aircraft by using its wings. They needed the last drops of fuel to brake with the help of turbines. When the plane touched down, the front landing gear broke. The landing was tough. The whole plane was shaking, and the passengers were terrified. But everything ended well. No one got hurt. On November 1st, 2011, a Polish Airline 767 passenger plane was flying from the USA to Warsaw. 30 minutes after taking off, the pilots suddenly realized the landing gear didn't work. They warned the passengers about it. The wheels didn't come out because of some hydraulic error. Pilots remained calm and continued the flight. They almost reached the final destination and made several more attempts to deploy the landing gear. Nothing worked. They realized they would have to make a hard landing. When any airplane lands at this speed without wheels, it releases a lot of sparks, and its body heats up because of friction with the ground. In this case, the chance of a fuel tank fire is high. That's why the pilots had to circle around the airport for about an hour to burn fuel. Then, when the tank was almost empty, they started landing without the landing gear. There were sparks, metal grinding against the runway, the cabin shaking. The lower part of the fuselage turned red because of the high temperature. After sliding for a while, the plane stopped. About 231 people on board were rescued, thanks to the pilot's professionalism. Probably one of the most famous emergency landings occurred on the Hudson River on January 15, 2009. Pilot Chesley Sullenberger became a hero that day. The plane he was flying collided with a flock of geese during its departure from New York. The engines were out of order. There was only icy water under the aircraft and almost no chance of salvation. Even now, experts say that the risk of crashing the plane was very high, but experienced Chesley Sullenberger knew what to do. He did his best to calm down, focused on his work, calculated the exact angle at which the plane needed to touch the water, and successfully landed the aircraft. If he had made the slightest mistake, the plane would have lost its wings and drowned almost immediately. Chesley Sullenberger saved the lives of 155 people and became a celebrity. There was one dangerous situation in the sky on June 10, 1990. Not for passengers, but for the pilot. Flight 5390 British Airways took off from England and headed for Spain. It was gaining altitude, and the flight attendants started serving food to the passengers. At that moment, the pilots heard some noise. Condensate began to fill the cabin. Then, the glass on the side of the captain flew out of the window frame. He was pulled halfway out of the cabin because of decompression. His knees got stuck in the control panel next to his seat. The first officer grabbed him tightly by the belt. The temperatures were extremely low, and an incredibly strong wind was blowing outside. The plane began to descend, gaining speed. The autopilot shut down. The flight attendants grabbed the captain so that the co-pilot could operate the controls with both hands. The oxygen level was decreasing, so he began an emergency landing. The captain was outside the plane for about 20 minutes, and despite the extreme conditions, he survived. The plane landed successfully. The captain was taken to the hospital, and the glass was replaced. Further investigation revealed that the window had flown out because the bolts used there had been wrong. A plane runs out of gasoline. The engines stall. An aircraft crashes into a flock of birds. That's all pretty scary stuff. But what if a plane broke in half? This really happened in April 2022. A DHL Boeing 757-200 cargo plane was picking up speed on the runway. It was going to fly to Guatemala. The aircraft took off, and the pilots noticed some malfunction in the hydraulic system. They didn't fly far away, so they asked the dispatchers to allow them to land. The plane turned around and began to descend, and at that moment, its tail just broke off. The plane ran off the runway. Its hull was hot, but firefighters poured anti-fire foam on it just in time. Fortunately, none of the crew members got hurt. What caused such an accident is unknown. The company launched an internal investigation. The next hard landing occurred in the 40s. The pilot and 2 crew members were flying over Papua New Guinea. Visibility was poor because of fog and rain. But, according to the pilot's calculations, they were flying above a wheat field. He began to lower the plane. The clouds cleared, and he saw not a field, but a swampy area. They had no choice but to make a hard landing. It was a success, kind of. All 3 crew members survived, but the plane got bogged down in a swamp. It was impossible to take off, so the crew went to look for the nearest settlement. For 2 days, they were walking through the swamps, sharp tall grass, and hordes of mosquitoes. Exhausted, they reached dry land and met one of the locals. They helped the crew, took them to the village, and provided medical help. The plane was left to rot in the swamp, forgotten. It stayed there for about 30 years. Its whole body got covered with grass, mud, and moss. And the cabin was moldy. The locals loved to climb inside and play with it. Then, in the 70s, Some tourists from Austria accidentally found the aircraft. They took a photo of the plane and published it in the local newspaper. It attracted the attention of many photographers and travelers from all over the world. They called the plane the Swamp Ghost. Many tourists visited it and took parts of the plane as souvenirs. In 2016, one American traveler pulled it out of the swamp and moved it to his home.
Welcome aboard our flight from London to Miami. It will take us 4 hours and 30 minutes. The weather in Miami is... Wait, did the pilot just say 4 hours and a half? It sounds like a dream, but it will most likely become our reality in less than 10 years from now. Boom Supersonic, an aircraft manufacturer, is working on a passenger supersonic jet called the Overture that will be able to carry 65 to 80 people at twice the speed of current commercial aircraft. One of the major American airlines is interested in buying around 40 planes. The plane that's going to cost $200 million has recently passed the wind tunnel tests. If all goes well, the first finished Overture prototype will roll off the line in 2025 and will travel at nearly twice the speed of sound. The plane will be able to show its top speed over the sea, so it should be ideal for transatlantic flights. And then, traveling from, say, New York to Paris should take no longer than 4 hours. But first, it will have to get all the official permissions to do it. Some people are skeptical about the whole passenger superjet concept as they remember the story of the Concorde. That high-end plane delivered people from London to New York in about 3 hours and serviced other transatlantic connections. The tickets cost a whopping $10,000 per seat, and passengers got access to a super exclusive lounge with lobster and Angus beef for lunch. The Concorde went on its final commercial flight in 2003. It was a huge fuel guzzler. Plus, there are many complaints from people living near airports about the noise it produced. The Overture is supposed to be more fuel efficient, lighter, and have better software to make it more aerodynamic. The noise might still be a problem though, because supersonic aircraft need aerodynamic engines, which are pretty loud. That will definitely change in the future, as planes have gone a long way since their first flight in 1903. Back then, the Wright brothers started the aerial age with a 12-second flight traveling 120 feet in North Carolina. The top speed at that time was around 30 miles per hour, but it still seemed pretty impressive. The world's first passenger airline service took off just 11 years later. The flight from St. Petersburg, Florida to Tampa, Florida lasted 23 minutes. Covering the distance by car around the bay took about 20 hours, so that was a great time saver. The tickets cost $5 and were sold out 16 weeks in advance, but the airline went out of business in 4 months. The new age in aviation began in the 1950s when they introduced the turbofan engine. It became possible as they started using temperature-resistant materials and complex air cooling systems. Planes also became lighter as they were made of composite materials. The wings have also improved over the years. The airfoil, that's the part thanks to which the air travels faster above the wing than below it, became a real game changer. Thanks to it, the planes keep a low speed during takeoff, which means they move smoothly and burn less fuel. The fastest plane in the world so far is North American X-15. It was rocket-powered and made of aluminum and titanium. A huge wedge tail helped it stay stable at that super speed. The rocket plane set the world's altitude record, reaching an altitude of 67 miles. Oh, and to make it even more impressive, it happened back in 1967. So, if it was possible back then already, why don't we all just fly rocket planes? Or at least supersonics, especially on long-distance flights? In terms of speed, passenger planes are still where they were 50 years ago. Mostly because speeding flights up would also make them way more expensive. Flying faster means burning more fuel. Plus, supersonic engines are expensive to produce and maintain. Another reason is natural forces. The winds affect the speed of a plane, and no technology can control the wind. A strong tailwind can help it move forward at a higher speed, and a headwind can slow the aircraft down. Planes mostly fly at altitudes of up to 7 miles. Up there, the air is thinner, which means there's less resistance and a plane can fly faster and save some fuel. Also, the lower temperatures make the jet engines more efficient. Another perk of flying through that part of the atmosphere is that it's less turbulent, so flights go smoother. Private jets can't fly that high. They're smaller, and their engines aren't strong enough to reach such an altitude, so they stick around to 15,000 feet. Ever notice those white trails that planes leave behind? Their official name is contrails, and they're like artificial clouds planes leave behind. When the plane reaches its cruising altitude, temperatures get quite low, about -67 degrees Fahrenheit, and the water turns into particles of ice. The higher the level of humidity is, the bigger those trails get, and you can see them long after the plane has disappeared. So, thick and long contrails can be a sign of an upcoming storm. Sometimes contrails can even be colorful. The droplets of water that are formed up in the atmosphere can freeze in different sizes. They all reflect sunlight at different wavelengths, causing the effect of a rainbow. When all the colors mix, it appears white, the most common contrail color. Airplanes don't take off with the wind, but actually against it. It's kinda like a kite. To make it fly, you launch it against the wind, and there it goes. That's because there are 4 forces of flight: lift, weight, thrust, and drag. The lift is generated because the speed of the air is higher above the kite than below it. The kite is pushed upwards. This is the lifting force. Going through a storm is one pretty scary experience, but is it really as dangerous as it seems? In fact, the most critical moments in windy weather are takeoff and landing. Plane manufacturers test their aircraft and specify speed limits at which the pilots should move in different weather conditions. At some airports, the winds are pretty severe all year round, so landing can get pretty wobbly. It requires a real pro of a pilot to land when the wind strikes the runway. Sometimes, the wind unexpectedly changes its speed and direction. The pilot really has to know what they're doing to land when the wind direction changes. Otherwise, the risk of overshooting the runway is pretty real. Extreme heat is another weather condition that can stop a plane from flying. Airplanes fly by generating lift with their wings. The air below the wings takes the plane up. In extreme heat, an airplane can't produce that much lift. That's because hot air expands and becomes way less dense than cold air. With less lift, the plane may find it really hard to take off and fly. Electronics will unlikely respond well to extreme heat or humidity, and the AC system may fail. Smaller jets can't operate at a temperature of over 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Larger Airbus and Boeing planes perform the best below 126 degrees Fahrenheit. Those mysterious chimes you hear during the flight are a kind of a secret language the crew uses to communicate with each other. The chime you hear shortly after takeoff informs the crew that the landing gear is getting retracted. A single chime during the flight is a sign that one of the passengers needs the assistance of the crew. When they're serving meals and run out of food and drinks, they can ask their colleagues to share, using a high and low chime combo. 3 low tones means serious turbulence is approaching, so the crew needs to buckle up. Have you ever noticed the flashing light in the cabin before takeoff? You have nothing to worry about. It occurs when the pilot disconnects a plane from the airport power supply and it switches to the onboard one. This rapid transition may cause flashing.
Want to catch a glimpse of what flying might look like in the future? Then you're in the right place. Economy class lie-flat bunk beds, vertical flying vehicles, AI-powered in-flight meal service. Buckle up and let's start our flight. But first, I need to ask you, have you ever heard of the Crystal Cabin Awards? Oh, those are like the Oscars of aviation interior design. And here are some of the most recent winners. Meet Skynest, a lie-flat bed for people traveling in economy class. These nests are supposed to be used on long-haul flights. The design is based on a sleep pod island located in the middle of the plane. And you can book a 4-hour time slot if you want to take a real nap during your flight. The best news is that this design is likely to be introduced next year. While traveling in premium economy on long routes, You'll be able to use smarter seating design. It includes wider seats and twin armrests, which means no more fighting for space with your neighbors. Plus, there will be fully flexible rows with cushions that can be elevated, creating lie-flat beds. Lufthansa Group has promised that premium passengers will be able to book suites with double beds and travel on temperature-controllable heated or cooled seats. As you see, these days, airline companies are working hard on new designs of aircraft cabins, and it might impact the entire future of air travel. At the moment, they focus on travelers' experience within the walls of the plane. As a result, we have some mind-boggling products. Check out Singapore Airlines first-class suites, or Air France's La Première cabin, which is believed to become one of the best first-class cabins in the skies. It's going to feature suites equipped with separate sofas and chairs, and each suite will have 5 windows along the cabin wall. This will make it the longest first-class suite in the world. But then, Airbus went and patented the idea of a more interactive flight experience, especially for those lucky passengers occupying window seats. With the help of special eye-tracking equipment, the aircraft might be able to highlight significant objects you're looking at and provide you with detailed information, appearing on a semi-transparent display on the window. The patent also claims that you could send data to devices connected by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. This way, takeoffs and landings would get much more exciting, and you'd be able to get information about a new country or city. Qatar Airlines, in turn, came up with the idea of Q suites. It looks like this. On the sides, you have individual suites, while the middle part can be transformed. You can choose to have a double suite to travel together with your partner, or you can have some private space, or even move the walls and turn the place into a quad suite that you can use for a meeting. There might also be some improvements in economy class. They're bound to bring more comfort, especially on a long-haul flight. A company called Zodiac Seats filed a patent based on a zigzag configuration of seats. Look at this aisle, which contains 3 and 4 seats, with each of them facing in the opposite direction. This allows for way more shoulder space than regular seating. Plus, passengers have a lot of leg space. Yes, some people might feel a bit uncomfortable having to face their neighbor for more than 8 hours straight, but aren't these space improvements worth it? Now, you might know that moving around the cabin while flight attendants are serving meals and beverages is kind of tricky. Plus, you have to eat at a specific time with everyone else. Or, if you're not feeling hungry, forego the meal altogether. Well, robots might be the solution. One company has suggested using perfectly sized pods that could slide along the rail in the middle of the aisle, delivering drinks and food ordered by passengers. This way, you could get your meal at the most suitable time for you without leaving your seat. This solution is likely to solve the problems with meal service. Even better, it might allow for fewer galleys in large planes. Unfortunately, this idea was filed 60 years ago and hasn't been implemented yet, so maybe it's not as great as it sounds. Another idea connected with in-flight meal service includes using AI. According to its creators, the technology will record what passengers leave on their trays, and later use this data to suggest various catering plans on subsequent flights. Now, even though these innovations sound like they're going to make traveling way more comfortable, they're not exactly revolutionary. But look at these innovations. Vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Hyundai Transys's air taxi cabin concept optimizes space and prioritizes your privacy in a shared cabin. If we talk about short flights, there's City Airbus Next Gen. That's an all-electric, vertical takeoff and landing vehicle with 4 seats based on the lift and cruise concept. It can operate within the range of 50 miles and has a cruise speed of 74 miles per hour. Another amazing prospect is passenger aircraft with AI co-pilots, or even pilots. Some experts claim that planes could potentially be flown on a fully automated basis. Not everyone agrees with this idea, though. A skilled pilot is part of a complicated safety system that reduces risks and keeps passengers safe. Pilots have to be navigators, technicians, engineers, and weather experts. On a regular working day, a pilot needs to deal with ground crew, other air crew, cabin crew, air traffic control, and passengers. That's a lot. And don't forget that they need to communicate well, not only in aviation terms, but also on an interpersonal level. Will AI be able to do the same? Time will tell. But let's get back to the boldest ideas about the future of air travel. Some experts think that sometime around 2040, you'll be able to catch a hypersonic plane ride. Lots of people believe that the era of supersonic planes finished in 2003 when the Concorde commercial airplane was decommissioned after decades of being unprofitable. But it seems the situation might change soon. New supersonic aircraft will fly at incredible heights, and their speed is likely to be at least 6 times the speed of any other passenger plane. Traveling from New York to London, in this case, will take less than 2 hours. By comparison, these days, it takes a conventional airplane 8 hours to fly from one of these cities to the other. There is one problem, though. The supersonic plane tickets will cost a lot, and statistically, people tend to prioritize price over speed. So, experts don't think that a lot of people will be eager to pay a few $1,000s to get from London to Sydney in 4 hours. Plus, such planes will need a lot of liquid hydrogen fuel, and at the moment, it's not cheap. By the way, you might not recognize a plane from 2050. These flying machines will keep changing for the next several decades, and the chances are high that, at some moment, windows will start to disappear from airplanes altogether. This way, aircraft will become stronger and better suited for high speeds. Windows make planes heavier, which results in larger fuel consumption. No wonder cargo planes don't have windows. Planes will also become sleeker and will likely be covered with solar panels. There's also a concept of a plane with its cabin made out of transparent polymers. I don't know about you, but I don't think I'd ever board such a plane. Talk about aerophobia. The chances are that in a few decades, we'll see a hypersonic plane with a jet engine that can turn into a rocket, that can fly into space. Liquid oxygen would get injected into the exhaust, turning the engine into a rocket. It would help the aircraft reach enormous speeds, and on the way back, the engine would turn into a regular jet engine once again.
It seems strange that a commercial jet doesn't have keys to turn it on, but it's a bit more complicated than just turning a key. Instead, there's a series of buttons and dials on the control board that starts the complicated process. A battery provides the power to the aircraft that is charged through a small electric generator within the jet's tail. Airflow gets in and moves into the jet's engines to keep them cool. A reserve power then warms the turbines by turning them slowly until they start spinning at the right rate. Then, the engines can be turned on, one at a time. With up to 4 engines on a commercial jet, this entire process can take up to 90 minutes. Planes don't have keys to lock the doors either, but when they sit idle, jets have security guards constantly monitoring them. But even if someone happened to get past them, it wouldn't be a quick getaway. When you enter the plane, the captain keeps a close eye on the boarding process. They are not only in command of the flight deck, but also of the passenger's cabin. To become a commercial pilot, you gotta have a distance vision of at least 20/20. But depending on the airline, it's sometimes okay if your perfect vision is assisted with glasses. It's time to find a seat on the plane. You checked in late, and you've already had an unpleasant experience of not getting on your flight like that in the past. This is because airlines purposely overbook their flights, just in case there are no-shows or cancellations. So, you didn't get to choose your seat this time. You walk past the front seats in jealousy. There are seats that are always taken much faster because everyone wants to leave the plane as soon as possible after it lands. But if you're choosing safety over early departure, the back is the place to be. It's estimated to be 40% safer in the rear end of the plane. Maybe you prefer to drive instead of flying? the chances of something dangerous happening to a plane during a flight are 1 in 11 million. Compare it to the likelihood of a car accident, which is 1 in 5,000. You've been placed at the emergency exit. Excellent, more legroom. Over the past 30 years, legroom has been decreasing more with every year. Up to 5 inches on some airlines. No, you haven't been getting taller. The reason behind this is the more people they're able to fit in, the more money the airline makes. Airlines don't build their own aircraft and use factory-made planes. From there, each airline will determine its own seating structure. This is also why the seats don't line up with the windows. But it doesn't matter. You have the best seat, although it's always a bit concerning when sitting next to an emergency door. What if you accidentally knocked it while asleep and opened it? Relax, it's actually impossible to open these doors while flying. The air pressure inside pushes against every square inch of the cabin. On the door itself, this pressure equates to 1,000 pounds across every square foot of the door. But even if you somehow developed Hulk-like strength in your sleep, you still wouldn't be able to open it as there's a series of electrical and mechanical devices that latch it closed. The extra measures are important as the moment the door opens, the entire cabin temperature would quickly drop, and that drastic change in pressure would weaken the plane's structure. It's time for takeoff, and they've asked you to turn your phone off. Should you really? 10% of people have admitted that they don't turn theirs off and don't even set them to airplane mode. Cell phones can cause issues, but they don't disrupt the electronics as you might believe. There is a genuine concern that while you're flying in the air, your phone can receive signals from multiple towers on the ground, providing stronger distractions for the pilots. So let's make their job a little easier and turn it off. The plane has reached 40,000 feet, your ears have popped, and the seatbelt sign is turned off. The flight attendant walks down the aisle with their arms held outward. Within such a thin passage, they walk this way as it helps with their balance. They try to avoid disrupting passengers, so they don't use the headrest of the seats. And in case of sudden turbulence, there are special grabbing spots under the overhead luggage bay. It's estimated that 500,000 people are flying in the sky at any given time. So right now, you're part of that special group involving 0.1% of the world's population. You look out the window and notice the white wings. Planes are painted white and other lighter colors as well to help reflect solar radiation. This avoids damage from the sun by reducing the amount of heat the plane receives.
We'll be experiencing some turbulence.
But further in the distance, dark clouds approach and the plane is heading towards a thunderstorm. Since it's made of metal, it has to be a big electric conductor, right? Thankfully, jets are fitted with an aluminum shell that conducts electricity very well. The cabin's interior is completely shielded from lightning, protecting electrical systems and leaving us carbon-based mammals unhurt. A plane is so perfectly built for electrical storms that it's one of the safest places to be. There haven't been any major incidents from a storm since the 1960s. You're thirsty and you're aware that you should have brought your own water. When aircrafts land at each location, they refill their water supplies. The water quality in a plane is based on where they collected the vital liquid. Many things contribute to the water quality of every airport. Water cabinets, trucks, carts, and hoses all could be of different standards. In 2019, an airline water study found that most airlines weren't providing clean water, so the general recommendation is to only drink water from a sealed bottle and avoid even tea. But the food is perfectly fine. As you sit back down, you notice the cabin is cold. Super cold, to be honest. It's intentionally set to around 71 degrees Fahrenheit, for a good reason. When people become vulnerable to fainting, it's due to not receiving enough oxygen. And when there's warm air mixed with high cabin pressure, fainting becomes more common. So, while the cold air is helping those who need it, you've been provided with a blanket for your comfort. Warmed up with a blanket, you notice the dry air running through your nose, and it dehydrates your lips and eyes. But don't worry, the air is completely safe and very clean. 40% of the air is recycled and goes through a thorough cleaning system to remove all dust and airborne bacteria, and the other 60% comes from the outside. The humidity levels in the air get very low, and that's why you feel all that discomfort. It's now dark outside as the plane begins its descent to land and the lights are dimmed. The dimmed lights aren't for the pilots or crew or those at the airport. They're for you. If something goes wrong while landing when it's dark, they'll have to start an emergency procedure. The dimmed lights are there to help your eyes adjust and help you follow towards the exit in the dark easier. But luckily, today, it won't be necessary as your journey has come to an end. How can spiders survive when they lose a leg? When they're in a dangerous situation and try to run away, they can lose legs and regrow them only a couple months later. They'll survive without any problem because most of the time, their legs come off at break points. Those are joints that contain muscles and constrict, which help spiders minimize blood loss. If they lose a leg at the part that comes before the break point, the spider still sheds it, but it will lose more blood. It will be harder for the animal to recover in this case. Speaking of spiders, have you noticed how they sometimes stay extremely still for a long time? They're motionless while waiting for potential prey to land in their web. When moving around, they waste energy and drive unnecessary attention to themselves. Either a hungry bird praying for a quick snack will see it, or a spider will remain hungry because flies will be less likely to come near their web. When spinning a web, they waste a lot of energy. Even after the web is finished, a spider may have to wait for days or weeks to catch something. So, it's important to save as much energy as possible. Hunting spiders are way more active, but the majority of them are nocturnal predators. They spend their days relaxing, tucked away under a rock or in a nest. Roast potatoes can stay hot for a really long time, and this mostly has to do with the fatty, starchy crust that's like some sort of an insulating layer. When you pre-boil a potato, this causes its starch granules to absorb water and swell until carb molecules seep out to produce this type of thick gel. Since potatoes are in the oven, high temperatures drive off moisture. This makes the gelatinized starch on the outside of the potato chunk and creates a crispy crust. This crust traps the heat inside. The fat from the baking tray collects in cracks too, and the heat-keeping structure stays strong. Birds don't get electrocuted while perching on power lines because it's not voltages that will harm them, but voltage differences, and electricity wouldn't flow without them. So, if you see a bird standing on a single power line at, for example, 35,000 volts, the lack of a voltage difference is something that keeps the animal safe. But if it accidentally extends its wings and touches another power line that's at a different voltage, it won't end well. That's the reason why electricity companies make sure there's plenty of space between the cables. Have you ever wondered why airplane pilots won't try to land on grass when the landing gear doesn't deploy? The grass may seem like a good solution at first because it's soft, true. But the surface will neither be smooth nor even. When pressure is high, landing on grass can lead to unpredictable movements and cause issues such as structure formation. That happens because of bouncing and unequal pressure. This can even result in fuel leakage and prevent the doors from opening. Bald heads tend to be shiny, even though the skin elsewhere on the human body isn't. Most of our skin is covered with tiny hairs that give it some sort of velvety peach fuzz look. With male pattern baldness, the hair follicles tend to shrink and turn into skin cells, which means there's no hair there at all. And the scalp is especially shiny due to the sebaceous glands. They produce and secrete some kind of oily matter that protects our skin. Sebaceous glands are located all across our skin, but the scalp has way more of them. So, this oil coats the skin, which is why it turns into a more reflective surface. House cats will rarely meow at one another, but they become chatty with humans, and this could be related to domestication. The process of taming cats and keeping them as pets started nearly 10,000 years ago. Before that, cats were pretty much loners. They rarely encountered other cats, so they didn't even have to use their voices to communicate with each other. Instead, they communicated through their sense of smell, which included things like rubbing against a certain object, for example, a tree. So they didn't even have to come face to face with other members of their species to send a message. And that's how they mostly communicate today as well. But humans don't have such a good sense of smell as cats, so these foxy creatures had to think of a way to send us a message and still get what they wanted from us, which turned out to be meowing. If you're planning a day trip to a desert, for example, the Sahara in North Africa, You're going to want to bring good sunscreen, and a lot of water, of course, but also a snug sleeping bag if you're planning to spend the night there too. Deserts really become cold during the night. In the Sahara, temperatures go from an average high of 100 degrees Fahrenheit during the day to 25 degrees during the night. Such dramatic change happens because of two main factors: humidity and sand. Sand doesn't retain heat that well. When light and heat from the sun reach a desert, sand grains from the top layer absorb heat. But they release it back into the air relatively quickly. So during the day, the sand radiates the energy coming from the sun, which eventually heats the air and leads to extremely high temperatures. And during the night, the sand is quickly losing heat once again. But this time, there's no sunlight that would reheat the desert. That leaves the sand colder than before and leads to such low temperatures. In arid deserts such as the Atacama Desert in Chile and the Sahara, the humidity is extremely low. That means the amount of water vapor in the air is almost zero. Unlike sand, water does well to store heat. Water vapor in the air traps heat close to the ground. It's like you cover the ground with a huge blanket. That way, you stop it from dissipating into the atmosphere. Also, when the air has a high level of humidity, it requires more energy to heat up. That means it takes more time for that same energy to disappear and for the surroundings to get colder. Since there's almost no humidity in deserts, such areas can both quickly heat up and cool down. If you microwave water for tea, it will taste worse than when it's made with a kettle. That's because the temperature of the liquid is the main factor for a good tea. Water should reach a rolling boil before you pour it over tea leaves, whether they're loose or bagged. It's an easy thing to do with tea kettles, both the electric and stovetop varieties. When the burner or the electric heating element is on, the water at the bottom of the vessel warms up. As it's getting hotter, water through the rest of the kettle comes to the boiling point. A microwave doesn't heat from the bottom up. It creates electromagnetic waves that randomly jump around the box. You probably notice when you try to reheat leftovers. They end up partially frozen in some spots and extremely hot in others. The same will happen with water because it's hard to control microwave energy. Overheated liquid won't be good for tea either. When water goes above 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the boiling point for water, it can destroy the compounds that give a tea its specific flavor. Have you ever wondered why those electrical plugs most Americans use have holes in the prongs? The story dates back to the early 20th century when Harvey Hubble Jr. invented different types of electrical plugs. He started with the detachable electric plug, which was the first ever of that type. Some of his designs had prongs with indents, those aligned with tiny bumps inside the electrical sockets. Such an indent and bump system secured the prongs in place after people would insert a plug into a socket. At some point, these indents gave way to holes, which worked in the same way. But that's just part of the story. Most of the modern outlets don't even have bumps anymore. They keep plugs from falling out of the wall by using friction and pressure. Today, some manufacturers insert a rod through all the holes in a line of prongs. That's how they lock them in place while encasing them in plastic. Some also say the holes save metal, which cuts costs of manufacturing in the long term.
All right, window seat on a flight to Hawaii. You get comfy and are about to have the flight of your life. As it goes on, you look out to the darkness and can't even see the clouds as you're cruising above the ocean. You notice that the flight attendant is asking everyone to shut the shades on the windows, including yours. The reason is that they want the passengers to be comfortable with the lighting. If an emergency happens, it'll take your eyes more time to adjust if there is light coming from the outside of the plane and the inside. If a power outage happens and the shades are shut, it'll be easier to act since your eyes are adjusted to the surroundings. Every second counts during times like this. Passengers are asked to leave the shades open during takeoffs during the day. And during a day flight, the cabin crew also asks passengers to leave the shades open so that the natural light outside illuminates the plane's interior. Now, there has never been an incident in history where a phone signal interference caused any problems during a flight. The idea is that when you're thousands of feet in the sky, your phone signal will bounce off different towers and the signal will get more powerful. This normally won't be a problem in mid-flight when the pilots aren't doing much work. The real concentration and critical moments are during the landing and the takeoff. The phone signals will just flood the networks on the ground, which will make the pilot's job just a little bit more annoying. Now, it seems to bother you that the windows on the plane are so small given the improved technology over the years. The windows on airplanes are so small relative to the size because they need to maximize the hull between them and increase the strength of the frame. The overall frame over the plane is actually at its strongest if there aren't any windows at all. Metal fatigue occurs over time, originating at the weak points of the plane. The bigger the windows, the weaker the frame. You lift the shades just to take a peek outside. You're so far from the ground, it looks like you're actually closer to space than Earth, but you're only 7% the distance from where astronauts go. Planes can technically go higher than that, but they can't because it won't be good for the passengers and the crew members. Planes can sometimes cause lightning storms during a cloudy flight, but don't worry, you're safe. The static creates lightning whenever a plane passes through, and it can strike while it's moving. But over the years, technological advancements improve the quality of airplanes. The electrical current of lightning is distributed throughout the aluminum structure so that it doesn't affect the controls. Some people start panicking on the flight. All the windows are shut because the flash of lightning is disturbing for many people who are trying to sleep. One person panics a little too much and tries to open the exterior door in mid-flight. Well, this is almost impossible to do because of internal pressure. You'd have to be a superhero to open it up. The plane exits the cloud cluster back into normal sky. The flight attendants are bringing out some dinner. You pull out your tray and wipe it clean. It's reported that this is the dirtiest part of the plane. Nope, not even the toilet. After cleaning it, they serve some chicken and little veggies on the side. The smell is incredible, but when you take a bite, it somehow doesn't taste as good. It's because the difference in air pressure and the low humidity alters your taste buds, especially the sweet tooth part and the salty buds. Only a few hours left until you arrive at your destination. You wake up and the flight attendants ask you to put on your seatbelt and tuck in your tray. The plane lands and parks. You're the last one out and make your way to the baggage claim. The conveyor belt rotates, but you don't see your bags. When flights lose your baggage, there's a pretty good chance that they're still in the location where you traveled from. Occasionally, they can end up on other flights due to human error. The flight agencies can recover your luggage if you file that they're missing. You read the signs on the flight destination screen showing the arrivals and departures. These signs are written in 3 specific fonts so that people can read them from afar while walking. As you continue walking, you stare out into the large window panels. These windows are made of special material. It makes you feel like you're closer to your plane than when you look through regular ones. You notice they're driving the bags to the planes for loading and refueling them before takeoff. They fill up the planes with just enough fuel to take them to their destination, rather than pumping them with a little extra. That's because they need the planes to be as light as possible since fuel is heavy. You head outside and feel the hot wind of Hawaii in your hair. It's only a matter of time before you're dipping your feet in the ocean water. You try to find a taxi, but they're all taken. Taxis are yellow because a salesman in 1907 had a lot of cars in his lot and didn't know what to do with them. He decided to start a taxi business to make use of those idle cars. To make them stand out from the rest of the cars, he decided to color them yellow. According to a survey, yellow cars are the easiest to spot on the street. School buses also use yellow to stick out from the crowd. Colors are important in our daily lives, just like the colors of a traffic light or the flashy red color of a stop sign. But it wasn't always red. In the early 1900s, the red dye wasn't consistent and faded over time, so they used yellow instead. In the 1950s, they finally started using a red color that didn't fade away and white lettering for stop. Well, you finally find a cab and enter. You're so tired and decide to shut your eyes for a bit. Scientists still don't know why we need sleep, but it has to do with resting our brains so that we can function for the next day. You get stuck in traffic and are jolted up by the sound of honking cars. You look out the window and see the ocean filled with people. Instead of waiting in the taxi, you pay your fare, grab your bags that the airline finally found, and head down to the beach. You dip your feet and pick up a large seashell. You put it against your ear to hear the ocean. Of course, you don't exactly hear the ocean, but different frequencies of the ambient noise inside the shell echoing around. The sound just happens to resemble the ocean. You take off your shoes to feel the sand on your feet, but it's so hot that you tiptoe your way to a shady spot. The sand absorbs the heat and can retain it. 85% of sunlight can also reflect off sand and water. You open your bags and get out your towel and lay it on a soft spot. Even though you're sitting in some shade, you're still at risk of getting a sunburn. So you apply some cream to protect yourself. SPF stands for Sun Protection Factor, and the numbers mean how long it will take for the UV rays to affect your skin. After applying it, you dip in the water for a bit and see a large volcano in the distance. The sand around is somewhat black. This is because Hawaii is located in a volcanic range. The color of the sand is determined by the location, environment, and source. Most of the sand in the world is made up of quartz and trillions of particles that used to be rock. The deserts of the world used to be forests millions of years ago, but due to climate changes, everything turned to sand. Some parts of the Sahara Desert still have some geological formations suggesting that there used to be large rivers in the region. Not to mention the discovery of aquatic dinosaurs found in those ancient dry rivers. You're finally settled and sipping on a punchy drink. You see some people surfing the large ocean waves. Surfing was technically invented in Hawaii and later became a popular water sport worldwide. You hang out for a bit until sunset and then head to your hotel to take a long shower. Water was not invented in Hawaii, although it is surrounded by it. It's, an island.
You can easily remove Post-it notes because their adhesive is not even. Sticky notes feature a plastic adhesive. It's spread out in blobs across that sticky part of the paper. When you slap a Post-it onto a bulletin board, not all the blobs, that are technically called microcapsules, will actually touch the surface to keep the paper stuck there. You can easily unstick it. And then, when you want to reattach it to something else, those blobs of glue that are left unused will take over the role of the adhesive. Eventually, you'll use all the capsules of glue, or they'll simply get clogged with dirt. So the note won't stick anymore. It's very satisfying to chew gum because it's made of rubber. Gum from before had an elastic texture because of something called chicle, a natural type of latex rubber. Now you can chew your bubble gum easily because it's made of synthetic rubber. Some of these are used in car tires too, while others are used in Elmer's glue because they mimic the effect of chicle. Office buildings are a bit taller during the night. When the employees are finished with work, they all go home. Tall office buildings get slightly taller. For example, a 1,300-foot tall skyscraper will shrink about 0.03 inches under the weight of 50,000 people inside, assuming they're all an average weight. You could actually heat your house with just 70 people. If you've ever been trapped in a small crowded room, you know people give off body heat. So you'd need about 70 people in motion to warm up your home in the winter using just their body heat. Or maybe 140 people standing still, if you consider the house uses 4 electrical storage heaters and humans radiate approximately 100 to 200 watts of heat in normal conditions. Why does glass break so easily? It's because its atoms are not very tightly arranged. Unlike other solid material like metal, glass is made up of amorphous, which basically means structureless, loosely packed, and randomly arranged atoms. These atoms can't rearrange themselves that quickly to retain a firm structure, so glass collapses and fragments shatter everywhere. Do you know why airplane passenger windows are mostly below eye level? Aircraft are way cheaper, stronger, and easier to build without windows, but they're there because many people like the view. Particularly about 100 years ago when flights were often conducted at low altitudes. Also, if some passengers are feeling sick, looking out the window can help them reconnect their sense of balance, as their eyes are continually reporting what's going on around them. Windows in this position also help distribute the load around them more evenly. The floor of the cabin where people sit isn't all the way at the bottom of the aircraft. which is why windows end up being quite low compared to both the overall volume of the cabin itself and the eye level of the passengers sitting down. Water feels colder than air at the same temperature because it's denser. Because of that, your body loses heat 25 times faster while surrounded by water than it would if it was surrounded by air that was the same temperature. Since it's so dense, water has a high heat capacity, which means it takes a lot of heat to raise its temperature just a little bit. Water is good at both retaining heat and cold. That's why the ocean is way cooler than land, and at the same time, the hot soup stays hot for a long time. Water is also a pretty good conductor, which means it effectively transfers either heat or cold to the human body. Have you ever wondered why water cleans so well? It's because of its asymmetrical molecules. They are made of two hydrogen atoms stuck to a single oxygen atom, which means they're triangular. That's why they have a slightly different charge on their different sides, similar to a magnet. The oxygen end of the molecule is slightly negative, while the hydrogen is slightly positive. Because of this feature, water is great at sticking to other molecules. So when you want to wash away dirt, water molecules will stick to the dirt. They'll pull it away from the surface the dirt was on, no matter what it is. This is why water has surface tension. It's capable of sticking to itself too. House cats share some similarities with big wild cats, but one of the things that sets them apart is their vocalization. The majority of large cats, like tigers and lions, will roar loudly so everyone knows they're coming to defend their territory. But with house cats, most of the time, you'll just hear purrs and meows. That's because of the physiology of their throat and voice box, which helps create these feline vocalizations. So a cat can either roar or purr, but no cat can do both. Bobcats, cougars, house cats, cheetahs, they purr. Purring is specific because a cat creates it when it breathes in and when it breathes out. Roaring has evolved in a particular lineage of big cats, which includes tigers, lions, jaguars, and leopards, except the snow leopard, who lost this ability. They are capable of roaring because of the bendy bones in their throat. Mammals have their voice box in the throat, where air passing by its structures produces sounds. The vocal cords in the hyoid bones are the two main parts of the larynx that create different vocalizations in cats. You probably also prefer the pulse setting on your blender. And why wouldn't you? It just works better, and that's because of turbulence. When a blender stops chopping up food and starts spinning it around in circles only, everything you put inside is spinning at the same rate. It's not really about blending ingredients together, but about something called laminar flow. That means all the layers of liquid are continuously moving in the same direction. When you use the pulse function, your blender adds turbulence, so the fruit chunks are not just rolling around the sides of the blender, but they are falling into the center, which is when it's easier to blend them. So you'd like to open your window during a warm spring or summer day. It's so nice to hear the birds singing, and even when you come back an hour later, you'll probably still hear them singing the same song. They're hard workers, and the males are most likely guarding their territory and trying to attract a female. And other animals have their own tactics. Some like to rub their scent everywhere, but birds use a song to send the message, "Hey, I'm letting everyone know, especially other males in the area, this is my space." So they'll continue singing the same song over and over again. During the winter, they will most likely sing fewer notes to each other, or just one note. They want to let others know that where they are is their space. Plus, they're trying to figure out if there's any food somewhere nearby. Why do cats like small spaces? First of all, they are solitary animals, which is why they always search for a safe hiding place to take a good nap. And if you see a cat curled in a tiny box, it was probably just trying to find a nice, warm spot to sleep and avoid the cold floor. Cats prefer room temperatures to be about 57 degrees Fahrenheit. A bit cooler than this is comfortable for us. And if there isn't a convenient sunbeam to lie in, they will look for other solutions, like a cozy shoebox. Cats are pretty lazy. They can sleep up to 18 hours a day, most average between 10 and 13 hours on a daily basis. The majority of cats are most active during dawn and dusk. They're not the nocturnal animals that some of us think they are, but a specific category called crepuscular animals, together with other creatures like hamsters, ferrets, and stray dogs. Over millions of years, cats have evolved to become low-light predators. Their eyesight is adapted for activities during twilight. And since that's when they're most active, they save their energy for dusk and dawn. Before they became domesticated, cats would have had to expend large amounts of energy at these times, finding, going after, and catching their prey. House cats no longer need to hunt before each meal, but their natural instincts still encourage them to conserve energy for twilight periods. Why are four-leaf clovers so rare? Similar to animals, plant genes are located in small packages of DNA in the nucleus of each cell. They're called chromosomes. Our chromosomes come in matched pairs, but clovers have 4 copies of every chromosome per cell. There's a gene responsible for four-leaf clovers, and it's recessive. That means this plant will create 4 leaves only if it has a 4-leaf gene on all 4 chromosomes, and that's pretty rare. Also, some environmental conditions like soil activity and temperature can also affect whether the 4 leaves appear. Interestingly, these anomalies tend to happen in clusters, so if you find one, look around you. There might be more of them.
Hello, this is your captain speaking. Welcome aboard today's flight from San Francisco to New York. Fasten your seatbelts, and I'll tell you what's going on inside the plane at different stages of the flight.
Passengers always board from the left side. That's because the captain sits on the left side of the airplane cabin, so it's easier for him to align the plane with the terminal jet bridge from that side. Also, the aircraft is fueled and loaded with baggage on the right side. With passengers boarding from the left side, the crew can do their job undisturbed. If your priority is to get out of the plane as fast as possible once you arrive, pick an aisle seat near the front of the plane. If you want to have the most comfortable flight, pick a seat in the middle of the plane because the turbulence is less noticeable there. An even better option in terms of comfort would be those seats by the emergency exit. They have more legroom and you can stretch. If you want the safest seats on the plane, your best option is the back of it. Once you're seated, take your time to spot the nearest emergency exits. Count the number of rows between your seat and an emergency exit. It can save your life in case you have to leave the plane quickly. You'll manage to find the exit easily, even if everything around is dark or if you're blinded. You'll find it just by touching the seats and passing the number of rows you counted in advance. Boarding completed. Time to get ready for takeoff. Cabin crew are walking down the aisles to make sure all passengers are following their instructions. Okay, everyone has their seatbelts fastened and window blinds open. There's no one in the bathroom and the runway is all clear. Why aren't we still moving? We can go! Turns out, the aircraft must wait for a while. It's all about safety. When a plane takes off, it activates 2 powerful forces. One is jet wash, a fast-moving gas so strong it can easily flip a car, so no one can be near the plane. Another force is wingtip vortices that are the result of the wind generating the plane lift. These powerful rotating forces go from both wings and stay in the air for about 3 minutes after an aircraft takes off. If another plane flies into the air while the wingtip vortices are still there, the pilot will lose the roll control over the aircraft. The plane will flip over and crash. So, no plane is allowed to take off without waiting for at least 3 minutes after the previous one leaves. Back to the pilot's cabin. There are 2 people there, the pilot and the co-pilot. In case something happens to the first pilot, the co-pilot can take over. Both pilots eat different food to reduce the risk of them both feeling unwell. While the first pilot controls and adjusts the autopilot, the second one monitors the controls or communicates with the control tower. Also, there are checklists for safety standards to be satisfied at different stages of the route. So, while the captain is focused on the route, the co-pilot can complete the checklist and make sure that everything's going according to the plan. Flying is costly, so not only the passengers, but the airline as well want to make the flight as fast and short as possible. The shortest way is always a straight line. Still, aircraft routes look like an arc. It's because the Earth isn't flat like we see it on a map. It's a sphere. So, these lines only appear like arcs when we project them on a map. In reality, they're pretty much straight. Every airline and every plane wants to fly this most efficient way. But there are hundreds of planes flying every day, often in the same direction, so the air highway is pretty busy. The route data of every plane is pre-planned and is uploaded to the system. There are several of those so that the pilot has options if something goes wrong or if weather conditions change. The pilot can set up the right mode, and autopilot can control the airplane within its uploaded route. Keep up the altitude, speed, and direction. The pilots, meanwhile, keep an eye on the autopilot and focus on other tasks like navigating, planning, and communicating with air traffic control. On the ground, air traffic is managed by dispatchers, who watch over planes and make sure they don't get too close to each other. The air traffic is especially heavy in some places, so when an aircraft enters a busy zone, it has to follow a very specific route. There are also specified points called fixed navigational aids, or, shortly, nav aids. Those are devices on the ground that send radio signals in the sky that an aircraft can pick up on. There are also waypoints, which are geographical points on Earth. They're loaded into the GPS system, and an aircraft has to follow them. So basically, the whole route is flying from one waypoint to another all the way to the destination place. Time to start the descent. You can see the plane's altitude on the control panel. The pilots know the plane's speed, so they can calculate at what distance to destination to start their descent. If the altitude is 27,000 feet and the speed is 300 nautical miles per hour, the first number divided by the second gives us 90 nautical miles. This is the point they have to start the descent to maintain the descent path. There are also a couple of other things to consider, such as the wind speed and direction, or uneven speed drop. To descend, pilots have to get approval from the controller. Sometimes, due to traffic, they don't get it right away. So, they just keep moving forward without descending, therefore shifting away from the descending profile and land when the approval is given. Takeoff and landing are the most crucial and dangerous phases of any flight. That's because the pilot has less time and space to react to any occurring problems. In the air, even if both engines stop working, a plane won't just start falling. Instead, it'll begin to glide through the sky, losing about 1 mile of altitude every 10 of them going forward. So, the pilot will have about 8 minutes to react and find a safe place to land. If an engine fails during takeoff or landing, the pilots will only have seconds to decide if they should still take off and deal with the problem in the air or cancel the flight. Even if something happens, canceling the flight isn't always an option. When the plane reaches the speed of 100 miles per hour, you can't possibly stop it before the runway ends. And getting off the runway isn't good, to say the least. To ensure everyone's safety, the rules at these stages of the flight are especially strict. You should turn on the airplane mode on your devices to make sure that the signals that devices transmit don't interfere with the plane's electronic systems and don't block the radio's frequency. You've probably heard that clicking sound a speaker makes right before your cell phone gets a call, if it's right next to the speaker. These sounds are what the pilot might hear instead of the instructions while communicating with air traffic control. Even a 1-second interference can cause a lot of confusion. Just some certain types of cell phones can cause this problem, and if it's a combination of factors, the cell phone type, how far away it is from the cabin, and how many cell phones aren't in airplane mode. The cabin crew can't find out which of the passengers didn't put their phone into airplane mode, but the pilots will always know when many people didn't do it. You should keep your window blind open during takeoff and landing for safety reasons as well. This way, your eyes get used to the light or the darkness outside. In case of an emergency, during these risky stages of the flight, people who are comfortable with the natural light will react and evacuate faster, which is crucially important when every second matters. For the very same reason, the lights are dimmed in the airplane. This way, the light will be closest to the light outside the aircraft. Another reason is that if the window blinds are open, people from the outside can see what's going on in the plane. For example, they can see if there's a fire inside and where exactly it is. This way, they can plan the evacuation better. They ask you to fold up your table and put up your seat in the upright position to ensure that in case of an emergency, there will be no obstacles in the way. Everyone should be able to leave the plane as fast as possible. The passengers aren't allowed to use the bathroom during takeoff and landing because there's no seatbelt, no safe escape route with no obstacles, and it's not safe overall. A person can get trapped there during evacuation. The pilot isn't even allowed to take off or land while someone is in the bathroom. And looks like we're ready for landing.
Welcome to New York.
Have you ever noticed that one of the flight attendants hides their hands behind their back when you enter the plane? Are they crossing their fingers for a safe takeoff? Nah. At this moment, they're counting the passengers as they board. They have a special little counter for this. There are lots of stories about how bad airplane food is. In fact, it's not that bad. It's your sense of taste that's on the fritz because of the dry air. It dries your mouth out of all its saliva and dulls your sense of smell, which helps to feel 80% of what you taste. So, airline companies add more spices into the food so you can feel the taste. Seatbelts are located on the stomach because of the turbulence. When that happens, the plane sort of jumps up and down. Your waist belt holds you so that you don't crash into the ceiling of the aircraft. The shoulder seat belts in the car protect against horizontal collisions. By the way, flight attendants also have shoulder seat belts. It's because they always sit facing the passengers to keep order. While all passengers are flying face forward, the cabin crew sits backward. If the plane goes forward sharply, passengers get pushed into seats, and the flight attendants are held by shoulder and waist belts. Even if lightning strikes a plane, the passengers won't feel it. The entire aircraft is covered with an aluminum layer that conducts electric current without passing it inside the plane. Good thing. And all electronics and fuel tanks are equipped with additional protection. Before any plane is released from the factory, all this protection is tested by simulating lightning. Many passengers get a headache during the flight, especially right after takeoff. This happens because you're getting up to an altitude higher than Mount Everest in about 10 minutes. The air up there is thin. Your brain gets less oxygen. By the way, chewing gum or candies can help. Now, the main reason why the seats on the plane are so uncomfortable is profit. Airlines want to make more money, so they try to fit as many passengers on the plane as possible. Because of this, there's so little space between the seats. 2 additional rows in the cabin provide 12 new passengers. Also, companies make airplane seats lighter to spend less fuel. Seats become smaller and less comfortable. You can feel cold inside a plane, but when the plane is flying at high altitudes, the conditions resemble those in the Sahara Desert. It's all because of very low humidity. Every hour of flight, your body loses a lot of liquid. Stay hydrated, but only choose bottled water. Many companies don't show movies because they can make passengers too sad or emotional. Even if a movie doesn't have a dramatic story with incredible characters, it can still be heartbreaking for passengers. The thing is that our body experiences stress, and we take everything close to heart because of the lower oxygen levels. Also, we're sitting in seats at a high altitude and very far from home. Our brain realizes we're out of control of the situation. This feeling of helplessness can throw a person's emotions out of whack. So, companies only show positive movies and comedies. Some passengers say they feel like they can't think straight during the flight. This happens because of a lack of oxygen, so your mind isn't in top form. Well, better not do any important tasks or make any important decisions. Your corneas are the one part of your body that doesn't have a blood supply. The only way they get oxygen is from the air. So, worsened eyesight and dry eyes are common problems on airplanes. The best solution here is to take with you eye drops along with gum. That worsened vision is the first reason the crew dims the lights and asks you to open the windows during nighttime takeoffs and landings. Your eyes need to be adjusted to the dimness in case of an emergency. The second reason is the plane crew needs to be able to see out the window. There's a theory that hair grows faster during the flight. Some people notice that little stubble appears on their faces after the flight, even if they shaved a few hours before they got on the plane. Anyway, this theory is not confirmed. Some say the cabin pressure, lower temperature, or even heightened stress levels can accelerate hair growth. If you experience stress and get nervous right after you step on the plane, your best solution can be a little training. Go to the gym or make a set of squats before boarding to prevent stress. Also, a good workout compensates for the hours you spend sitting still. Airlines lose and send in the wrong direction several million lost bags a year. Almost half of the lost luggage is lost because of transfer issues. They may not deliver your suitcase just because of lack of time. A plane can fly away before loaders put your luggage there. When this happens, they might carry these bags to another flight. And when your bag goes to the wrong place, it can be taken by other passengers accidentally. If you want to find your lost luggage quickly, take a photo of it in advance and then show it to the airport workers. You can also buy a special GPS tracker and put it in your suitcase. It works for 6 days, and you can use your phone to locate your luggage wherever it is. Airport staff take unclaimed luggage to a special center. If the owner doesn't show up within 3 months, the things inside the bags will be put up for sale in specialized stores. There, you can find clothes, jewelry, and electronic devices. And of course, it all comes with a big discount. The rumbling noise you hear after boarding is not my stomach. It is luggage being loaded on the plane. The compartment is right under the cabin of the aircraft, so it sounds quite loud. Aircraft tires can withstand pressure 4 to 5 times more than a plane actually gives them during landing. The metal wheel is more likely to break than the tire. Pilots also have different meals. This is necessary to reduce the risk of food poisoning. The flight can go well even if one of the pilot feels bad because of a stale burrito. If 2 pilots ate the same burritos, they could lead to problems. Oxygen masks drop down when the air pressure changes. At a certain height, there can be less air in the cabin. To prevent passengers from feeling this, they should put on oxygen masks. When pilots descend to a safe altitude, you can breathe without the mask again. By the way, masks only have oxygen for 15 minutes. This is enough for the pilots to descend to a safe altitude on which passengers can breathe. The wings of most passenger planes are located at the bottom of the plane. It's built this way because of the engine. It should be installed under low wings because it's closer to the ground and easier to repair. Another reason is that the wing should take a big part of the blow during a bad landing. And if the plane falls into the water, then the wings become a life-saving pillow. Fuel tanks installed in the wings are empty after the flight, and it helps to stay on the water too. The wings of cargo planes are located at the top to make it easy to load the cargo since the hull is located very close to the ground. Also, it helps to avoid getting debris into the engines in case when airfields aren't clean. Plus, this wing location has less aerodynamic resistance during the flight. Little triangles on the aircraft walls are special labels for flight attendants. The triangles mark special windows. You can see flashing indicators through these windows. It signals the landing gear is retracted and the flaps are closed. But for ordinary passengers, this is the place with the best view of the wings. Turbulence is a common thing during a flight, but usually it's so insignificant most passengers don't even feel it. Strong turbulence is rare. By the way, turbulence is just hot and cold air affecting a plane. For better understanding, imagine a big balloon people fly on. Remember the flamethrower installed under the ball? It heats up the air and the hot air raises the ball up. So turbulence is the hot air created by nature, and it makes the same thing with a plane that it makes with a balloon. Also, turbulence can occur if the plane gets under the hot air stream left by another plane.
You turn the ignition key and hear the whir of the propeller in front of the cockpit. It gets quicker and quicker until it's a blur, and the plane begins to move forward down the runway. You're a trainee pilot, and this is your first supervised flight in a light aircraft. The instructor gives you an enthusiastic nod, and you begin to fly the plane upwards. Once you're in the air, you begin to relax until You hear a loud bang. Suddenly, the engine gets very quiet and the propeller slows to a stop. You're losing control of your plane, and with no way to maintain your speed, you're heading towards a crash landing. You've come too far to turn back, so the instructor quickly shouts instructions to you. For every 1,000 feet of lost altitude, a plane can glide for 1.5 miles. Light aircraft fly at low altitudes, so you're in a race against the clock to find a makeshift runway for your emergency landing. An enormous forest stretches out below you, but you can see a lake in the distance, so you ask the instructor whether you can land there. He urgently tells you not to. Hitting the water at this speed would badly damage the plane, and it would sink before you could get out. The plane gets closer and closer to the ground, and an explosive end. You pass the lake, and he tells you to land on the long stretch of road that runs through the forest. You need to find a stretch that's straight enough to land at speed and free of obstructions, like roadside trees. The plane is scarily close to the ground, but luckily, the forest begins to thin, and the road straightens out enough to try the landing. It's now or never, so you begin your preparations. You cut the speed to about 60 miles an hour and try to avoid the drivers below. You carefully dodge electricity lines and road signs as you hover a few feet above the ground. People begin to swerve out of the road in panic when they see the out-of-control plane. You fly into the air as your wheels bounce off the road. Your nerve holds, and you manage to pilot it to a safe landing. Even though normal roads are not meant for planes, they're still straight pieces of asphalt, just like you'd find in an airfield. So, in an emergency, they make a perfect runway. This has even become a common practice in some parts of the world. In Australia, an entire air ambulance unit often lands on the local roads. The pilots need to be taught how to do this so they can get to the remote corners of the country in case of an emergency. In the outback, this is often vital for anyone unlucky enough to find themselves on the wrong side of the country's wildlife. Australia has 100 species of venomous snakes and 10,000 species of venomous spiders, so this is more common than you might expect. When someone gets bitten in the wilderness, the rescue planes need to land somewhere nearby. They can't land on the soft, sandy ground because the planes are far too heavy. That only leaves the roads. This is such a problem for them that the people in Australia designed special roads for landing planes. They look like normal roads for cars, but with aviation markings to help the pilots land. There are also small pockets on the sides of the runway for aircraft parking. If you drove down one of these roads, you'd see special signs warning you that an airplane could suddenly appear. Luckily, there isn't much traffic in the outback, so cars and planes rarely meet each other. The only problem with landing in places this deserted is the lack of illumination. It's hard for the pilot to find a landing strip in the dark. In 2015, near South Florida, a pilot was flying a Piper PA-24 Comanche light engine airplane. He was cleared to land at one of the airports, but the landing was delayed. He was forced to circle around the airport for so long that he ran out of fuel. The places he saw that were close enough to land on were a swamp, which was a terrible option, and a highway. It was 8:45 a.m., rush hour. But still, the pilot steered the plane toward the busy road. The plane's engine wasn't running, so it flew silently towards the unsuspecting commuters. Most of them wouldn't have noticed it until it was only a few feet away. The pilot desperately tried to avoid highway signs, streetlights, and power lines. He was gradually losing altitude, and it was time to land. The pilot tried to warn the drivers of his approach, but it was no use. One of the drivers, Daniel, was relaxing on his drive to work. He nodded along to his favorite song and thought about what he was going to eat for lunch. Suddenly, the whole car shook. He looked behind him to see the roof of his car being sliced into pieces by a giant propeller. The screeching noise of the tearing metal and fear almost caused Daniel to lose control, but he kept his hands firmly on the wheel and hoped the propeller wouldn't reach him. Seconds later, the plane slowed to a stop. Amazingly, no one was hurt in the incident, and even the plane sustained almost no damage. It's a shame that the same couldn't be said for Daniel's car. Daniel had always been a cautious driver, and this was his first accident, ironically, with an airplane. It was such a stressful flight for the plane's pilot that while police and rescue workers were figuring out how to get the plane out of the way, he just laid down on its wing and took a nap. Another incident happened in California. The plane's engine failed right in the air. Once again, the highway was chosen as the landing spot. This time, the oncoming traffic lanes were separated by a green strip of lawn, and the pilot skillfully landed on it. There was no damage to the cars, the plane, or the pilot himself. Planes landing on the road are pretty common in some parts of America. Cantwell, Alaska has such a small population that the roads are mostly empty, so planes often use the highway alongside the cars. People come to the grocery store and see planes in the parking lot. Light planes don't weigh much more than a couple of cars, so the asphalt can easily carry them. They can also easily fit in the bounds of the road. Once planes reach a certain size, that becomes impossible. Take the small commercial Boeing 737, for example. Its wingspan of around 110 feet is double the width of even the biggest four-lane roads, which tend to measure in at about 60 feet. If one of these planes had to land on a road, its wings would smash into signs and lampposts. In an emergency, these issues might not be enough to stop pilots from landing on roads. The real problem with larger planes landing on normal roads is that they haven't been designed to carry the plane's weight. Commercial aircraft can weigh more than 90 tons, but roads never have to carry anything heavier than a truck. Now imagine a heavy Boeing trying to land on regular asphalt. As soon as it touches the ground, the wheels would plow straight through the surface, like skis through the snow. The plane's landing gear would get stuck in the ground, and the entire plane might even flip over. So, commercial pilots would definitely look for another place to land. Even though it might sound counterintuitive, one of the better landing options for huge commercial planes is water. There have been a few cases of emergency water landings, but the most famous was the Miracle on the Hudson. In 2009, an Airbus A320 took off from New York City and was on its way to Seattle. But 90 seconds after takeoff, it collided with a flock of Canada geese. They hit both of the plane's engines, and seconds later, the turbines stopped working. At an altitude of 3,200 feet, the decision was made to turn the plane south toward the Hudson River. The plane glided towards the George Washington Bridge, almost touching it, and then prepared to land. The plane was fully fueled and heavy, so the impact on the water was huge. Nevertheless, the 155 people on board, including the crew, were practically unharmed. They were evacuated through the emergency exits and waited for help on the wings of the plane. Another miracle occurred in 1956 in the Pacific Ocean. A Boeing 377 Stratocruiser was on its way from Hawaii to San Francisco at night. On the way, one engine broke down and another partially failed. The crew realized that they wouldn't be able to fly to the nearest airport, so they contacted the Ocean Station November, a Coast Guard vessel that was sailing nearby. To reduce the weight of the plane, the pilots flew in circles, burning fuel. By dawn, they were ready to land the plane on the water. The pilots reduced altitude as much as possible and shut off the engine to drop the speed. The plane then touched down safely on the water. Soon after, the rescue vessels arrived and rescued all the passengers. None of the people were hurt or even seriously injured.
Piano parlor at 35,000 feet. You won't believe you're on an airplane. That could have been the slogan of American Airlines. They pulled 50 seats out of each Boeing 747 and used the space to create a passenger lounge with armchairs, cocktail tables, and even a Wurlitzer electric piano. Their passengers could sing their favorite songs to the tickled ivories during long flights across the country. Luxury in economy. In the early 1980s, Continental Airlines installed so-called Polynesian pubs in some of its DC-10 jets. It was a small bar with snacks and drinks, round tables, and swivel chairs. There was also a video pong console. Continental took an approach worth appreciating. This kind of luxury was for economy-class passengers. Now imagine what first class was getting. Fine dining and flying. Australia's largest airline, Qantas, boasted a luxurious Captain Cook first-class lounge. The company turned the 747's upper deck into a full-on restaurant. It had it all: good food, good drinks, and good company. Flowers to prove a point. Pan American World Airways advertised the 707 Clipper as a machine without vibration. They put fresh flowers in a vase on each table to show passengers that the water wouldn't spill right on their laps during the flight. Pan Am featured freshly cut flowers until the late 1970s. Slightly questionable if turbulence struck, but still romantic. Full-sized beds. During the 1940s, everyone enjoyed the privilege of sleeping comfortably during a flight. On the Boeing Stratocruiser, seats were roomy and could be turned into a full-on bed. The aircraft even had spacious locker rooms where passengers could change into their PJs or into a different outfit. Ooh, how the times have changed. Wacky colors. Until the mid-60s, airplanes were painted in light colors, or not at all. The only bright spot was usually a colored strip along the fuselage. But not American airline Braniff International. They hired a famous architect and interior designer, Alexander Gerard, to make their planes brighter. He used a vibrant palette that includes such shades as purple metallic and lemon yellow. But why dabble in bizarre paint jobs when you can make wacky planes, like the Flying Barrel? Officially called the Stipa Caproni, it was one of the funniest planes in aviation history. Italian engineer Luigi Stipa designed the thing to have its propeller inside the bulky barrel-like fuselage. The bizarre-looking plane actually proved to be quiet and stable in flight. The only drawback was the speed. It couldn't go much faster than 80 miles per hour because of drag. That wasn't much, even for the 30s. 9-winged super boat plane. Well, what else can you call it? Officially, it was the Caproni CA-60. Yep, the same aircraft manufacturer that built Luigi Stipa's weird barrel design. If you're wondering whether this thing could really fly, the answer is not really. It had a brief maiden flight, but wasn't successful on its second attempt. Its dreams of soaring across the Atlantic went down with it. A wingless plane. Famous aeronautical engineer Alexander Lippisch contributed a lot to the study of aerodynamics. But man, did he make some weird aircraft. His Dornier Aerodyne was basically another flying barrel, only this one didn't have wings at all. It's a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that, unfortunately, lost the popularity contest to helicopters. The Spruce Goose. Meet the largest flying boat ever built. Officially called the Hughes H-4 Hercules, the aircraft was nicknamed the Spruce Goose because of its birch frame. The plane was made from wood because of an aluminum shortage at the time. Its first flight was also its last. The wooden giant managed an altitude of 70 feet over the water, but landed after going a mere mile. The Flying Umbrella. In search of better performance and reliability, aeronautical engineer Paul Nemeth developed a round-wing plane. People who saw his Nemeth parasol aptly dubbed it the Flying Umbrella. Its strangely circular wing was set 16 feet wide, enough to set a Volkswagen Beetle on top. Though only one prototype of the Nemeth parasol was ever built, this plane entered the list of the weirdest aircraft design. The Flying Pancake. This delicious-sounding breakfast-inspired nickname belongs to the Vought V-173. It was an experimental vertical takeoff and landing plane. It was called a pancake because of its yellow disc-shaped body. This thing was pretty much wingless. Any lift generated was all thanks to that flat fuselage. An inflatable plane. In the 1950s, Goodyear created the inflatoplane. The idea was to use it as a rescue aircraft that could be rolled up and packed into a small container. I'm talking smaller than your average bed. It was made of fabric to make that possible and could be blown up to full size, all 20 feet of it, in only 5 minutes. But in 1972, the project was shut down because of its main drawback. The plane could be popped with a single pinprick. The Super Guppy. Try not to stare at his forehead. Go ahead. Nah, you can't not look at it. That's okay. The Aerospace Line Super Guppy is the only airplane that could fit an entire spaceship. And that's what mostly these models were made for, to transport NASA's rockets and their parts. So how did they load that massive cargo space? The plane's huge nose lifts up. NASA still uses one of these aircraft today. The Antonov AN-225. This monster of an airplane is quite the record holder. It can hold the most cargo with a maximum capacity of over 500,000 pounds, meaning this plane could transport your house somewhere if you're looking to relocate. It also has the longest wingspan, almost 300 feet. The Statue of Liberty could lie across it. Miniature aircraft. This plane is the exact opposite of the previous two. The McDonnell XF-85 Goblin was supposed to fit inside another plane. This aircraft made history as one of the smallest planes ever built. Because of its unusual shaped fuselage, the Goblin was nicknamed the Flying Egg. Unfortunately, it never made it past the prototype stage. The thing was too hard to control. Backward wings. When watching it in action, you'd think this plane was flying backwards. That's because the wings on the Grumman X-29 were angled in reverse. Strange as the design was, this plane had extraordinary maneuverability and a light structure. But of course, there was one major drawback. It was the most aerodynamically unstable aircraft ever built. The computerized flight control system had to make 40 corrections per second to provide some stability. Oops. The Chopper Cycle. The De Laughlin HZ-1 Aerocycle was an American single-pilot flying vehicle developed back in the 1950s. To turn left or right, they had to tilt the entire chopper in that direction, sort of like maneuvering a motorcycle. The Aerocycle could reach speeds of over 60 miles per hour, and apparently pilots only needed 20 minutes of instruction to learn how to fly it. The Boomerang Plane. At first glance, the Rutan Model 202 Boomerang looks like two planes holding hands in the air. But it's actually just one fuselage. It houses one propeller, and the other is on a separate engine nearby. Thanks to its strange but efficient design, the plane could fly nearly straight at all speeds even if one of its engines failed. Its designer, engineer Bert Rutan, used his own brainchild for personal transportation. Invisible aircraft. The Northrop Tacit Blue, nicknamed the Whale, looked like anything but a plane. But sometimes stealth outweighs aerodynamic concerns. The goal of this experimental plane was to show that an aircraft can be virtually invisible to radars. Thanks to its strange shape, the Whale could operate very close to the front line without being detected. Combo Craft Airship. Although it looks like a typical airship, the technology in the Lockheed Martin P-791 is much more sophisticated. It was built to combine the high speed of a jet with the buoyancy of a Zeppelin. This is a very fuel-effective solution. Hybrid airships burn less than 1/10 the fuel of a helicopter per ton.
We'll start our top 10 with the smallest plane in the world, the Star Bumblebee. It was built specifically to set a world record and get this title. Its wingspan is smaller than the average person's height, and the length of the plane is the same as a regular sedan. But this baby can surprise you. Its maximum speed is similar to a supercar, 190 miles per hour. Still, it has only risen in the air a few times, and it even had to make an emergency landing. But no one was injured, and the restored plane was given to a private collection. By the way, the cost of building one Star Bumblebee was about $10,000, so it was really a regular sedan among the planes, one that could only carry one person. Next on the list is a Cessna 172. This airplane is also a record breaker, not for its size this time, but for the number of built units. To date, more than 45,000 aircraft have been built, and it remains in production since 1956. As for its size, Its length can be compared with the length of a limousine, and the wingspan is a little less than a school bus. Far fewer people can board it though, only the pilot plus 3 passengers. In 1959, this aircraft set a world record for the duration of a refueling flight. 2 pilots took off at a Las Vegas airport and landed there in 64 days, 22 hours, and 19 minutes. Without refueling, the latest Cessna model can fly 800 miles. It's like the distance from San Francisco to Las Vegas and back. We move on to larger and more powerful aircraft. Embraer Legacy 600. It's slightly longer than a subway car, but much more comfortable. Figures. After all, it's a private aircraft worth $25 million. But if you want one, then be prepared to pay an additional $500,000 to $1 million a year just for plane maintenance. Now this plane is similar to a beluga whale in its shape. Actually, that's what it's called. Airbus A300-600 ST Beluga. It's designed to carry aircraft parts and external cargo. It's also transported space shuttles. It looks like a mother airplane carrying her baby. Beluga was the one who transported the Columbus module for the ISS. Its length is like 2 baseball fields and almost the same wingspan. Its cargo bay is so big that it can easily accommodate the fuselage of another plane. Amazingly, it only takes 2 people to fly such a huge machine. But despite the size of its cargo compartment, Beluga can lift no more than 47 tons, or 30 hippos, whatever they prefer on board. Its cost is about 180 million euros. It's almost like a fleet of 600 Cessnas. Boeing 787 Dreamliner. It's one of the most efficient aircraft in the world. This airplane holds the record for the longest flight without refueling. In March 2020, it flew from Papeete to Paris. The plane flew without landing for almost 16 hours and covered a distance of over 9,700 miles. This is like the distance from New York to Los Angeles 4 times. The cost of this big guy is estimated at $300 million. This is like 30 of the most expensive Rolls-Royces, or 30 million cinema tickets. Hughes H-4 Hercules. This is actually a flying boat, and it was made of wood. It's the biggest flying boat ever built, and it had an enormous wingspan, 321 feet. To get this thing in the air, 8 propeller engines were used, each with 3,000 horsepower. And even though this water monster was built in 1947, it could lift more cargo than the modern Airbus Beluga. Hercules could lift a weight of 59 tons. That's like a modern tank, or about 30 SUVs. But originally, it was built to transport about 750 people at a time. Still, the payload and maximum speed of this aircraft remain an issue. This wooden guy has only made 1 flight in its life. It climbed to a height of about 65 feet and flew 1.2 miles above Los Angeles Harbor. Despite this, engineer Howard Hughes kept this monster in working condition for almost 30 years, spending about $1 million per year. Airbus A380. This is the largest passenger plane in the world. It has 2 decks and can accommodate about 850 passengers. It's like a population of a small village, all on board one airplane. To accommodate this many passengers, it has an impressive size. Its length is almost as much as a soccer field, as is its wingspan, and its height is more than a 7-story building. On top of all this, the Airbus can travel incredible distances without refueling. It can take off in Iceland and land on the tip of South America. The only disadvantage of A380 is its price, $445 million. With this money, you can buy 4 private islands in the British Virgin Islands. A Saudi prince once bought one of these and modified it into a private aircraft. Now, it looks like an expensive mansion or hotel inside. It has become the largest and most expensive private jet. It's estimated to cost about $500 million. Oh, and by the way, just to take off, this giant needs a runway of almost 10,000 feet, so not all airports in the world can take an Airbus A380. Scaled Composites Model 351 Stratolaunch. An unusual name for an aircraft, but its appearance is even more bizarre. This aircraft bears the title of the longest wingspan in aviation history of all time, 385 feet. This is more than the length of a soccer field, plus a limousine. The pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineer are in the right fuselage cockpit. The cockpit of the left fuselage is used as a storage unit. 6 powerful engines help this giant take off, and 8 racks with a total number of 28 wheels help the big guy to land. Stratolaunch was designed to launch Pegasus rockets from it, but now it's going to be used to launch hypersonic flights. Well, whatever its purpose, pilots will have to be careful because so far there's only one Stratolaunch Model 351 in the world. Jumbo Jet, or Boeing 747. This is the world's first long-haul double-deck aircraft. This baby held the title of the heaviest and most capacious aircraft for 36 years until Airbus A380 appeared. Its wingspan is more than the length of a hockey field, and its length is 250 feet, which is equal to the height of 15 giraffes. This aircraft set a record for the number of passengers on one flight. During a rescue operation in Ethiopia, there were 1,086 people on board the 747. This plane was also used to transport the President of the United States, or his First Lady. In this case, the aircraft was assigned a call sign, Air Force One, or Air Force One Foxtrot. And the cargo version of this plane was used for transportation of the space shuttle from reserve airfields to the place of its launch at Cape Canaveral. Antonov AN-225 Maria is the heaviest aircraft ever built. It also has the largest wingspan of any aircraft in operational service. The distance between the tips of its wings is almost like the length of a soccer field, and its body length is 275 feet. This is like 6 school buses in a row. Naturally, it's a power lifter among planes. In 2009, Antonov was listed in the Guinness Book of Records for lifting the heaviest monocargo in aviation history, 187 tons. That's like 1,000 of the smallest aircraft in the world, the Star Bumblebee, or 4 Boeing 737s. But the absolute record for Antonov's lifting capacity is 253 tons. This is like half the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa. Well, the records of this aircraft are quite long. Since its first flight, the AN-225 has set 240 world records. This is a unique case in aviation, and is in fact a record itself. This thing is not exactly an airplane, but it deserves a place on our list. The Caspian Sea Monster. It was an experimental wing ship. That means it used air force reflected from the surface of the earth or water to stay in the air. Formally, it was a ship, as it could fly at an altitude of only a few meters, but it looked more like an amphibian, and only pilots could fly it. A pretty complicated system, right? For a long time, it was the heaviest plane in the world. When it was empty, it weighed 240 tons. That's like 60 elephants. And it took 10 engines to get this thing in the air, 5 on each side. But it still had enough speed to get from New York to Washington in half an hour.
People say it happened in the quiet early morning above Newark Liberty International Airport. A co-pilot preparing for descent noticed something strange. While checking the approach coordinates, his data screen blinked once, then filled with a bizarre, unsettling message. Don't you wish you knew what this means? Shocked and scared, he called the captain.
Captain, I'm detecting a strange anomaly on the FMS.
The captain looked and saw the same message. There were no errors, no warnings, just that cryptic sentence across the display. They rebooted the system, reloaded the coordinates, tried everything, but the message refused to leave. Until, just as suddenly, it disappeared. The screen returned to normal. The landing was smooth, but the pilots were unsettled, and for a good reason. They filed a report and dug into the aircraft systems. No one has found any glitches. No known faults could explain it. And then another pilot, days later, saw the exact same message while flying a different plane into Newark. Some people blamed software bugs. Others suggested a monumental prank. For the crews involved, it was something different. A chilling mystery that remained unexplained. What do you think about this? What is the most plausible explanation? Share your opinion in the comments. Meanwhile, we continue. One of aviation's eeriest legends involves the ghostly aftermath of Flight 401. On December 29, 1972, Eastern Airlines Flight 401 crashed into the Florida Everglades. It happened during a routine approach to Miami and was caused by technical glitches and human error. 101 lives were lost in that tragic accident. Trying to cut costs, Eastern Airlines took unscathed components from the wreckage and installed them in other planes in their fleet, particularly in several L-1011 TriStar aircraft. Not long after, flight crews started reporting weird things. For example, flight attendants claimed they spotted the captain of the crashed flight seated in passenger rows, looking terrifyingly real. They also reported seeing him in cockpits, sometimes seen examining instruments or quietly standing in the galley. Some crew members even believed that the captain's spirit intervened to prevent technical failures, as if he hadn't stopped protecting the aircraft. Even though Eastern Airlines seemed to dismiss such reports, they eventually removed the reused parts without any loud announcements. But even so, the haunting stories never fully went away. One night over Florida, a seasoned pilot and flight instructor experienced something he's never forgotten. He was flying an SR-20 Cirrus with a student, running a routine training session under instrument meteorological conditions. Everything was going smoothly until they approached Orlando Executive Airport at about 1,500 feet. That's when the aircraft's radio, tuned to the emergency frequency 121.5 MHz, suddenly crackled to life. A soft, chilling voice came through the static. It was a young girl whispering, "Hello? Hello?" The sound was so faint and so eerie that it froze both pilots in place. Hoping someone needed help, the instructor replied, but got nothing back. Just silence. It wasn't until later that night that the story came together. It turned out there was no mystery about it, just tragedy. A young female student pilot had reportedly stolen a small plane from a nearby flight school. Flying alone, untrained, and scared, she'd tried to reach out over the emergency channel, but no one had understood. But her ghostly call for help was very real. She crashed later that night. No happy ending. One early evening over Scotland's Highlands, a flight instructor was on a final approach for his last run of the day. He was piloting a Cessna 172, flying low over uneven terrain. He flew with full flaps deployed, holding steady at minimum approach speed. Turbulent winds, near 20 knots, which is around 23 miles per hour, battered the aircraft. So the pilots braced for a rough landing. And then suddenly, everything went silent. The wind disappeared. Without the headwind, the plane lost its lift. The controls went limp in the pilot's hands, like a game controller that was no longer connected. For a second, the aircraft seemed suspended in the air. It was completely unresponsive. The pilot shoved the throttle forward and dipped the nose, which forced the plane back into motion. Moments later, it touched down safely. Later, meteorologists explained that it could have been a rare microburst, a rapid downdraft of air that erases lift in an instant. But strange things happen not only in the air. Airports can be pretty creepy too. Finished in the mid-1990s, Denver International Airport became known not just for its size, It was one of the largest airports in the world by area for its strange aura. Its white, peaked roofs, designed to mimic the snow-covered Rocky Mountains, created a silhouette on the Colorado plains. But the project behind this awesome design had billions of dollars in budget overruns, as well as unexplained construction delays. Soon, whispers began. People were talking about hidden underground bunkers beneath the airport, allegedly spanning multiple levels and built far out of sight from the daily rush of passengers. But that was only the beginning. Inside the airport's decor was just as impressive and mysterious. Creepy gargoyles in the corners, murals depicting apocalyptic chaos, inscriptions in long-forgotten native languages. Such bizarre choices led to the appearance of numerous theories ranging from quite plausible to absolutely insane. And rather than deny it all, Denver International embraced its bizarre reputation. Today, the airport even runs conspiracy-themed tours, which proves one fact: DEN is unlike any airport in the world. But let's get back to the skies. The Saab 340 was a 34-seat turboprop, unusual in one key way. It ran on GE helicopter engines, the same ones used in Black Hawks. These engines had a quirk. During cold, slushy weather just below freezing, they could suddenly roll back. For a second, they'd shut down with a loud bang and flash, lighting up the cockpit and kicking the plane, only to restart instantly. Quite alarming, but common. Then storms brought more strange phenomena. Ice could block the radar, and static danced across the windshield, looking like a living plasma globe. Once, something even stranger happened. Flying at night, 10 minutes from landing after dodging storms for hours, the aircraft entered one last cloud. Suddenly, the nose lit up, and it wasn't lightning. It was a deep magenta light. It glowed like a spotlight cutting through the cloud in front of them. For a few seconds, the entire cloud was bathed in color. Then it vanished. Specialists said it could have been a rare case of St. Elmo's fire, a weather phenomenon where a bright violet or blue light appears on pointed objects, like aircraft wings or lightning rods during a thunderstorm. And here's a bonus for you. Look at this. An enormous, impossible monster, isn't it? An Aussie pilot saw it from the sky. A giant snake shape was moving under the water in a lake. Before you start blaming extraterrestrial civilizations, hear me out. It wasn't a real snake, even though it looked like one. The shape was created by a bunch of pelicans chasing fish. They were traveling all together in a long line. The pilot took a photo during a special flight when the pelicans first arrived at the lake. This lake is called Katitanda Lake Eyre, and it's in the middle of South Australia, which is a very dry place. Most of the time, it's just a big, salty, flat area with no water. But when rivers bring enough water, the lake fills up and turns into the biggest lake in Australia. Birds and animals come from everywhere to visit. Right now, the lake is filling up for only the fourth time in 160 years. This happened because it rained a lot across 3 big rivers that feed the lake, which is something that doesn't happen often. People call it a dry flood because it didn't rain near the lake itself, just far away, but the water has been traveling a long way through the desert. It's a very rare and special thing to see. Only people who take special flights get to watch it from above. The water makes plants grow and attracts hundreds of birds.
Well, here's quite a list for you. Yellow fever, malaria, Zika. These are just a few of the nasties you might pick up if you fly in shorts. Sure, the cabin might look clean, but check it out under a microscope and you'll see a different story. Take seatback trays. They're gross, with over 2,100 colony-forming units per square inch. Who knows how clean the actual seats are? Airlines aren't exactly shouting about how often they deep clean. Probably not more than every 1 to 3 months. Now, if you think planes get a good scrub down before every flight, think again. Every minute of delay costs an airline about $100, so there's not much time for a thorough cleaning. The crew does what they can, but wearing shorts is still a bad idea. You'll expose your skin to all that grime, and let's face it, you won't jump in the shower the second you get off the plane. So do yourself a favor and wear clothes that cover your skin. Plus, sometimes it gets excessively cold on a plane, so shorts will make you ask for a blanket on a plane. Now, listen closely, you don't want to do that. Those pillows and blankets are reused constantly and not always cleaned thoroughly. Let's just say short turnaround times between flights make proper washing unlikely. But even if they are, airlines use industrial detergents to wash pillows and blankets. You see what I'm driving at? Either make sure to wear proper clothing or bring your own blanket. If there's something you should totally wear on a plane, it's slippers. Yep, the ones you snagged from the hotel the last time you traveled. They're a lifesaver when you want to ditch your uncomfortable shoes but don't want to flash your socks, no matter how cute. Slippers are easy to slide on and off, making them perfect for those mid-flight bathroom trips. At the end of the flight, you can toss the slippers away. No muss, no fuss. During takeoff and landing, the air pressure changes super quickly, which can lead to ear discomfort and muffled hearing, something called barytitis. Simple things like yawning, chewing, or swallowing can help your ears adjust to the pressure. But if you're asleep, you're not doing any of that, so your ears will struggle. Plus, takeoff and landing are when most accidents happen, so it's crucial to stay alert and be ready for anything. And your ears will thank you. Now, not every life hack you see online is worth trying. Take this one that went viral on TikTok. Millions of viewers watch passengers pulling their knees up to their chests, feet at the edge of their seats, with a seatbelt fastened around their feet. But you shouldn't do that. First off, it's against the rules. Official guidelines say seatbelts should be worn properly across your lap. Next, in this position, a sudden impact could force your face or chin into your knees. Plus, a properly worn seatbelt helps you keep restrained during sudden altitude drops, preventing you from being thrust upwards. Finally, if you injure yourself or others by sitting this way, you could be held liable for any costs incurred, like if the plane has to make an emergency diversion. Well, you know the drill. Tray tables up, seat backs upright. But why is this so important? It's not just an airline preference, it's the law, according to the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations. The thing is, upright seats provide more structural support during impact. A reclined seat can act like a catapult during a sudden stop, projecting you forward or slam you backward in case of sudden acceleration. Takeoff, approach, and landing are the riskiest phases. About 67% of fatal accidents happen during these times. Cruising is the safest phase, so feel free to recline once you're at altitude. Now, in case of an emergency on a plane, you'll only have around 90 seconds to evacuate. Dimming the cabin lights during takeoff and landing when it's dark outside is all about safety. This helps your eyes adjust to the darkness, making it easier to evacuate if needed. It can take up to 30 minutes for our eyes to fully adapt to low light, and having sharp vision can be a lifesaver in an emergency. Plus, with your eyes adjusted, you'll see the floor lights guiding you to the exits more clearly. On the flip side, if it's bright outside, the cabin lights stay on so that you're not blinded upon exit. These small details make a big difference in creating the best conditions for a quick evacuation. You'll also notice flight attendants asking passengers to close tray tables, stow bags, and put seats upright. This clears the pathways to the exits, and they might ask you to open your window shade so they can spot any external hazards like fire or debris that could hinder an emergency evacuation. Well, it's time to have lunch. Well, sadly on a plane it won't be as yummy as back on Earth. But why does food taste a bit off when you're flying? Let's first figure out how we perceive the taste of food. It's not only about your mouth, it's also about your nose. The dry air and pressure changes in the cabin can reduce your taste bud sensitivity by about 30%, making food taste different in the ear than it does on the ground. As for your nose, well, let's just say it has a hard time distinguishing flavors when the air humidity is only 12%. In total, there are 5 basic tastes: saltiness, sweetness, bitterness, sourness, and that savory flavor often called umami, which is Japanese for delicious taste. The two tastes that get especially weak when flying are saltiness and sweetness, which is why airlines often over-season their meals. To make airplane food, if not yummy but at least edible, cooks must add up to 20% more salt. By the way, it's not just about the altitude or pressure. That loud background noise can also make food taste less salty and sweet. While traveling, relax and breathe, my friend. Despite what you might think, aircraft air quality is actually better than in many other communal spaces. About 40% of the air is filtered through a HEPA system, and the rest comes from outside. This means the air is completely changed every 3 minutes, catching 99.97% of airborne particles. Sounds very safe, right? Well, almost. Look at those overhead air vents. As for colony-forming units, there are 285. Just 285. For comparison, an average keyboard has over 3.5 million CFUs per square inch. So those nozzles are relatively clean. Still, you never know when they were last wiped down, so keep hand sanitizer nearby just in case. In any event, the overhead air vent can help keep germs away, so it's good to have some fresh air blowing in the stuffy cabin. Now, while your plane is taking off and landing, it's a must to stay seated. But actually, staying glued to your seat for the duration of the entire flight is more of a bad idea. You see, we all need our blood to circulate nicely around the body. Sure thing, you aren't supposed to walk to and fro, but standing up for some time is a good idea, especially if you have an aisle seat and there's no one to block your way. If you're blocked in the middle or window seat, just make sure to stretch your legs. We've chatted about this before. To protect your ears, it's best not to sleep at certain times on a plane. But here's another tip to keep your eyes happy too. Whenever you're flying, go for glasses instead of contact lenses. The dry air on airplanes can be super harsh on your eyes. If it's your first time flying, you might not realize how bad it can feel, and taking out your contact lenses mid-flight can be a real problem.
Let's face it, airports can be pretty annoying. But the most annoying thing about them is probably having to take the laptop out of your backpack and put it in a separate bin while going through the security check. But, of course, they wouldn't make us do those extra moves if there wasn't a good reason for it. Laptops are dense, and X-rays can't penetrate them, so it's easy to hide something dangerous there. If the device is out and on its own in a separate bin, it's easier for the scanners to capture something dangerous. Most airplanes are white. Is there a benefit to choosing this exact color? No, white paint doesn't make a place feel lighter. Neither does it save money on painting. Here are the actual reasons for the choice: safety, efficiency, and comfort. The first airplanes had a metallic color, but the problem with metal is that it's prone to corrosion, so painting it is a great way to protect an airplane from corrosion. White is favored for several reasons. First, planes fly high above the clouds and are exposed to sunlight a lot. White is the color that absorbs the least heat, and white planes get heated less. Also, sunlight makes the paint fade away. A colorful airplane will have its paint fade very fast and will require repainting. And repainting is costly, so painting aircraft white is a more lasting choice. Also, any damage is more easily noticed on a white surface. So that's one more point for the white color. We always board from the left side of the plane, every single time, no exceptions. For some reason, the right side just doesn't seem to be an option. Yes, that's done on purpose. First, the captain usually sits on the left. This way, it's easier for the pilot to align the plane with the terminal jet bridge. Also, aircraft are fueled and loaded with baggage on the right side. Since people board the plane from the left, the crew can do their job undisturbed, and there's no danger to passengers. Consistency with the choice of a side helps to make everything work more effectively. Since everyone always enters from the left, all jet bridges are designed to get attached to the left side of the airplane. If every airplane had the freedom to choose the side, it would create an additional mess for the logistics behind the process. There are more questions popping up, like what does this black triangle drawn above one of the windows mean? Apparently, it marks the seat from which the view of the airplane's wing is the best. It's needed for the crew to find the spot as fast as possible if, in case of an emergency, they need to inspect the engines, slats, or flaps. This mark saves a lot of time. Next, the rows aren't well aligned with the windows. This is business. Originally, all planes are designed with rows and windows lining up perfectly. But when an airline buys a jet, they add some additional seats, squeezing them closer together. This way, they have more seats, which means more passengers, so they can sell more tickets. But you get less space for your legs and might miss out on a window. Also, all windows have rounded corners, and this is done for safety reasons. There used to be planes with squared windows, but those caused crashes because such windows couldn't withstand high-altitude pressures. At high altitudes, external atmospheric pressure is lower than the pressure inside the cabin. So, there's a big difference in pressure inside and outside the airplane, and this creates stress. Without windows, this stress flows smoothly through the material. A squared window becomes an obstacle, and the flow of stress needs to change direction. The pressure builds up in the corners, leading to cracks. As a result, such windows break. Oval windows allow the stress to flow more smoothly without disrupting them too much and preventing stress concentration. So, oval windows are safer. The glass used in production is stretched acrylic glass, and there are 3 separate panes of it. This is done as a security measure in case there is a breach. This way, at least one pane will remain intact at all times. Have you ever noticed those small holes in the windows? The tiny hole is actually only in the pane that's in the middle. Its task is to regulate the huge pressure difference inside and outside the cabin. This way, the outer pane can handle the load. If the outer pane breaks, the middle one, even though there's a hole in it, will be able to keep the window intact. Also, that hole prevents the windows from fogging up. Now, let's say you want to relax and watch a movie. Luckily, there's a pair of headphones. But they're weird. They have a 2-pronged plug. No, this is not some kind of advanced technology. This is a witty move to prevent theft. If you can't use them anywhere else but on the airplane, no one will have the urge to snatch them away. Outside the airplane, they're basically useless. And then they bring food. There are people who love airplane food and people who aren't very fond of it. But most will agree that food does taste different in the air. Turns out, it's actually a thing. Low air pressure, lack of humidity, and background noise that we have at high altitudes change the functioning of our taste buds. They become less sensitive to sweet and salty foods, so airlines have to use more seasoning. Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone opened an airplane door accidentally? This wouldn't end well. It would be very dangerous to say the least. More specifically, soon there would be a lack of oxygen in the cabin. But gladly, no one can open that door accidentally. The pressure difference between inside and outside makes it almost impossible. It would take some immense strength to open it. The doors are designed to open on their own in case of an emergency. Speaking of safety, during takeoff and landing, the crew dims the light in the cabin. This is done for a good reason. This way, in case of emergency, you will see everything more clearly. Your eyes will get used to the darkness, and you'll have an easier time evacuating. Now, about pilots. They always wear those cool sunglasses, but the purpose is not to look cooler. They're used to protect the eyes. Throughout their career, pilots have to take care of their vision, but the problem is that it's not an easy task when you're a pilot. The damaging solar radiation that our sun emits is filtered out by the Earth's atmosphere, so the sunlight isn't very damaging to you if you spend most of your time on the ground. But it's different up in the sky. There's less air there, and the brightness is way higher. And with every 1,000 feet of elevation, the solar radiation is around 5% stronger. On average, aircraft fly at an altitude of 35,000 feet. This means that the amount of UV radiation is 175% greater than on the ground. This is very damaging to any person's vision. The large amount of time pilots spend in the air makes them vulnerable to different eye problems. And having eye problems can cost a pilot their career. So, wearing sunglasses is a crucial thing for them, and these sunglasses must be of the best quality. They should minimize the impact of sunlight and withstand UV rays, providing 100% protection for the eyes. Also, they can't be polarized, since polarization can mess with the perception of the cockpit displays. They should provide the best clarity, decrease eye fatigue, and minimize color deformation, so that pilots can see just like they would without their sunglasses on.
Now, flight attendants are trained to notice some pretty important things about each passenger once they board the plane. Curious about what these are? Well, first and foremost, flight attendants are all about safety. So if you're following the rules and paying attention during the safety demo, you're already off to a great start in their book. But don't worry, they're not just looking for rule followers. They also want to make sure you're comfortable and have everything you need to enjoy your flight. One thing they notice right away is how much luggage you're carrying. If you're struggling to lift a heavy bag into the overhead bin, they'll probably step in and help you out. And if you're one of those people who insists on bringing a massive carry-on that barely fits in the bin, they might discreetly check to make sure you're not breaking any weight or size limits. Speaking of luggage, flight attendants can tell a lot about you from your suitcase. If it's covered in stickers from exotic locations, they might assume you're a seasoned traveler who knows their way around an airport. But if it's a beat-up old bag with duct tape holding it together, they might wonder if you're a first-time flyer or just someone who doesn't care much about appearances. Of course, one of the most important things flight attendants notice about you is how you treat them and your fellow passengers. If you're friendly, polite, and respectful, they'll go out of their way to make your flight as pleasant as possible. But if you're rude, demanding, and throw a tantrum when things don't go your way, they might not be as eager to help you out. And then some. They'll always take a sneak peek at what's on your feet, too. It's not because they're all secretly obsessed with shoes, it's actually for your safety. They check out your sneakers to see if you can quickly and easily run in case of an emergency. If you're planning to board a flight, you might want to think twice before rocking those high heels, unless you want to hear an emergency command to kick them off. Speaking of emergencies, flight attendants also like to look at whether you're a fit person or not. They do this just in case they need some physical assistance in the event of some bad, unwanted thing happening. And hey, if you happen to be a doctor, don't be shy about letting the crew know. You might just be a lifesaver. Now, let's talk about food and drinks, my favorite topic. Flight attendants are always happy to serve you, but they also notice what you order. If you ask for something that's not on the menu or request a complicated custom drink, they might raise an eyebrow. But if you order something simple and easy to prepare, like a glass of water or a bag of pretzels, they'll be more than happy to oblige. If you're planning to fly with your furry friend, make sure to prepare it for some attention from the flight attendants. Don't worry, they're just curious about your cute companion. And if your pet is a trained service animal and registered with the airline beforehand, they're good to go. Also, if you've paid for your pet to fly, make sure they stay cozy in their carrier for the entire trip. Flight attendants are also trained to notice any unusual behavior or potential red flags. If someone seems nervous or anxious, they'll keep an eye on them to make sure they're okay. Luckily, some flight attendants are also happy to share some secrets that will make your next experience in an airplane way better. For instance, if you're wondering when's the best time to take to the skies, they may have some ideas. Some destinations, for example, have plenty of flights throughout the day. So the question is, should you go early or stay up late? Turns out that the best time is first thing in the morning. But shh, don't tell anyone, or they might steal all the morning flights. The reasoning is pretty sound, though. The weather is usually calmer in the morning, and any delays from the day before should have been sorted out overnight. Now, when it comes to holiday travel, here's another piece of advice. If you can swing it, give yourself a little wiggle room. For example, try flying on the day before the winter holiday starts, instead of the 24th itself. That way, you'll have a bit more flexibility and hopefully avoid any stress or last-minute airport drama. What can you do when it comes to delays, you might wonder? Well, they can happen at any time, unfortunately, and there's not much a flight attendant can do about it. But don't worry, flight attendants and passengers are on the same team. Also, don't believe the rumors. Flight attendants won't hide information from you. There's no point. If you're stuck on a delayed flight, don't hesitate to ask the staff for all the info you need, and rest assured they will do their best to get you on the next available flight as soon as possible. Now, what about jet lag? Surely flight attendants have the best remedies. If you're hopping across time zones, most flight attendants recommend catching a quick snooze upon arrival. But don't get too cozy. Stay up until nightfall to help your body clock adjust. After all, you don't want to be groggy when you arrive. Also, if you're only visiting a destination for a short time, airplane staff recommend sticking to your home time zone. It might just save you from the hustle of adjusting to another time zone unnecessarily. And don't forget to keep hydrated, munch on nutritious food, and get in some exercise to keep your body feeling tip-top. Now, we've all seen in movies those scenes where the main character gets a surprise upgrade to business class out of the blue. As much as we all dream of being upgraded to a luxurious seat mid-flight, it's usually only possible on the ground, unless you're one lucky duck. There's a list and a method for who gets bumped up to first class. Sometimes, flight attendants will shuffle passengers around so families can sit together, or they do it to fix any seat mix-up. But once the plane takes off, moving around is pretty rare. Ever wondered if you can switch seats with another passenger during the flight? The answer is yes, you can. Most flight attendants encourage it, especially if it means keeping families together. However, it's best to figure out any seat-swapping arrangements before boarding to avoid any chaos. Plus, some seats are fancier than others, and if people have paid extra for them, it's important to be respectful of that. Also, did you know that the emergency exit rows are sometimes marketed as premium seating? Let's talk about some serious airplane etiquette. So, who gets to claim the middle armrest? It's a big debate, but most flight attendants think the person in the middle seat deserves it. Hey, let's give them a break. They're already stuck in the least desirable spot. Now, on to the great window blind debate. Some people want them up. Some people want them down. If it's a nighttime flight, keep them closed. You don't want to disturb your fellow passengers with unnecessary light. However, if you're flying over the Himalayas, you better believe people are going to peek through those windows. And let's not forget, blinds need to be open upon arrival for safety reasons. The crew needs to see outside in case of emergencies. Have you ever been curious about what flight attendants eat on board? Do they have the same food as the passengers? Turns out, they can have the same meals if they want to, but they don't always choose to. Some prefer to pack their own snacks like hummus, apples, and popcorn, because the airplane options don't always keep them alert. They also focus on drinking lots of water and avoiding foods that might make them feel bloated, but they do indulge in airplane coffee. Some crew members even bring their own meals on board due to dietary requirements, or to add to the festive vibe on holiday flights. I once saw a passenger give a tin of holiday cookies to the flight attendants. You can bet she got some extra special attention.
Two flight attendants stood in the galley, smiling at each other as the plane prepared for takeoff. Usually, it would be a hectic time, ushering passengers in and settling them. Yet, this is a time for fun. Their flight is a ghost flight, devoid of passengers. If you ever wondered what the crew gets up to on empty flights, you're about to find out. They took a serving tray each, but had no intention of preparing food and headed into two separate aisles. It's aisle surfing time. The engines fired up as the plane rolls from the terminal to the beginning of its designated runway. The attendants place the trays on the floor and stand on them. They held on to the seats and awaited takeoff. They're laughing as the plane quickly accelerates. In no time, it's hurtling down the runway. As it rises into the air, the interior tilts. They let go of the seats, and as the acceleration continued, so did they, straight down the aisle. The first person crashes out on row 8, while the second continues until the end. A new personal best. Victory is sweet. While it does sound over the top, according to a safety trainer on the travel forum of Quora, aisle surfing is a real thing. The faint of heart could take the softer option to sit on the tray as it slides downwards. The imagination fires as to what else they may get up to. Laps around the interior, cartwheels down the aisles, skipping. They have a closed air cinema with their colleagues, air discos or karaoke on board of the plane. If you're a flight attendant and your crew wants to party, choose a song on the seat screen and take the announcement mic. Your colleagues are waiting. There are no passengers around to watch your dancing. You can do anything. The sky is the limit. A crew member made a viral video while singing in the aisle of an empty plane. Millions have watched the quirky video. It's a shame there were no passengers. It would have been excellent entertainment. Some have even said they ate food designated for passengers. However, anyone admitting to such conduct or being caught would see them face immediate dismissal, even with a new surfing record. You may be wondering why there would be a ghost flight in the first place. There are many reasons. In Europe, airlines must fulfill their obligations and continue the flight even if no passengers are on board. Similar legislation exists in America. There are time slots that allow for takeoff and landing. The European Commission has a use it or lose it rule. If airlines don't comply at least 80% of the time, they risk losing their slots to the competition. Aircraft also can't be left at the airport overnight, as you might with a car. Sometimes they need to be prepared for storage and returned to a particular location. In some situations, airlines continued flights and used passenger jets to transport freight instead. This type of proactive thinking has saved the financial lives of some companies. When you hear the term ghost flights, you may be thinking something a little spookier, like in a horror movie. And you'd be right, there have been actual documented ghost flights. In 1943, a flight on a combat mission disappeared following a raid on Naples. In Libya, the wreck was discovered, but not until 15 years later. None of the crew was found. The following year, a second expedition to the site found water fresh enough to drink, coffee that still had flavor, and radios and machine guns in working order. The public became fascinated. It was a ghost flight mystery. For most flight attendants, their everyday experiences aboard an empty plane aren't particularly spooky or as much fun as our aisle surfers. They're far too busy for all of that. Your typical plane will land, and the passengers depart, leaving behind quite a mess. Not everyone is as tidy as you and I. At this point, the cleaners race on board, vacuuming floors, picking up rubbish, and wiping down all surfaces so that the new passengers have an excellent clean environment. The cleaners must work fast. They have a deadline. The plane must be ready to take off again in under 80 minutes, sometimes a lot less, depending on the aircraft. This time is called turnaround. The more extended the plane sits on the tarmac, the less money the airline makes. They want to make the turnaround to be as short as possible. Time is money after all. While the plane is being cleaned, the ground crew are refueling. Many thousands of gallons are required, depending on the aircraft's size, weight, and length of the necessary journey. Without waiting for the cleaning crew to finish, the catering crew entered the plane. They often have to step around each other as meals are stored in the galley. The allocated meals must at least match the number of passengers on the imminent flight. Like fixing a torn seat, any minor repairs have to wait until a more extended stopover. As the organized chaos continues, the baggage holds are emptied by ground staff, while the new baggage arrives. Some of the more complex handlings can be moving the luggage to the carousels. There isn't much room, and sometimes the handler will have to crouch down low to get the job done. A lot of strength and skill is required, and the clock is ticking. The attendants are busy too. They must ensure that the catering crew has filed the upcoming meals and drinks in their proper places. They check off their inventory and prepare for the incoming passengers. They exercise their face muscles. Soon, they'll be wearing that smile non-stop and saying, "Good day," 200 times in a row. While they're always friendly, they have to deal with all sorts of behaviors, which can test the patience of even the sturdiest of attendants. Based on a list of 17 behaviors observed through the years, a flight attendant would give the following recommendations to the passengers. The flight attendants at the boarding door say hello to every passenger. Sometimes over 200 times in a row. Would you please say hello back? They're happy to help and recommend passengers push the buzzer only when necessary. The attendants collect trash during specific times, wear gloves, and prefer not to race back and forth. There's something that bothers most people when passengers take off their shoes. Please make sure to have a fresh pair of socks. If you sit in the exit row, please don't put any luggage under the seat in front of you, because it can block the way of the flight attendants. For example, if they need to use rubber slides urgently. Everybody knows about the rule to turn off the mobile phone, but not everybody knows why it's so important. Let's suppose all the passengers turn on their phones. In that case, the high-frequency electromagnetic fields of the mobile phones can disturb the plane's navigation system and cause false indications. There is a risk the pilot can make a wrong decision about the landing, especially if it's in terrible weather. The crew recommends keeping the seatbelt fastened during the whole flight, even if the sign is turned off, because heavy turbulence can occur unexpectedly, and the plane can be put 900 feet lower. You can loosen up your belt to feel comfortable, so the flight attendants will be happy you're safe. Passengers get into a confined space on board an airplane and may unconsciously begin an instinctive struggle for a place under the sun. Please keep in mind that this is a temporary condition. Treat each other with respect, and keep your seat back straight while the food is served, or when your neighbor gets to the seat. Passengers sometimes leave their headphones on while conversing with a flight attendant. The attendants may ask the passenger if they want refreshment, and they might get a blank stare in return. Would you mind taking off your headphones? Something that happens on every flight is when the plane is about to take off and someone decides that they want to go to the bathroom. It's all about good timing. Preferably not when the plane is hurtling down the runway at full speed. Please wait till the takeoff is over because it may be dangerous. While their job can be tiring, fortunately for us, flight attendants are patient, kind, and friendly people. They push on regardless of how tired they may be. International flights in particular can be long, taxing affairs. So, who could blame them if they find themselves on a ghost flight and decide to let their hair down, aisle surfing a bit with pleasurable distraction? And what would you get up to if you happened to find yourself on an empty flight?
Uh-oh, your airliner is filling up with people, so you hurry, looking for your comfy window seat and hoping to meet some pleasant neighbors, because a 6-hour-long flight to Hawaii with the ability to place your arms and legs as you want is an excellent start to your vacation. You relax into your window seat, already thinking of sunbathing on the beach once you reach your destination. You greet your first neighbor, who takes the aisle seat. You see the flight attendants are about to close the doors. You breathe out and stretch your legs. No more neighbors. Suddenly, the last passenger runs up to your row. It's as if he appeared out of nowhere. He tells you that you have taken his seat. You can't believe it. The flight attendant comes and asks you to vacate his seat. But why? You reserved online the window seat. You have no time to argue as the plane is taking off. So, you move to the middle seat. The guy puts his elbows on the armrests. Your aisle seat neighbor has already occupied the other armrest and put on his earphones. Huh? Seems like you are left without any space for your elbows. Let the silent telepathic fight for the armrests begin. You already know all kinds of middle seat neighbors as you fly frequently. Which one are you? The passenger who occupies both armrests is what we call universal, because he thinks he is the center of the universe, and the window and aisle seat passengers have to stay in their respective corners. He might narrow down the communication to elbow fights. Here, we recommend marking your armrest territory with words, no matter how awkward it might seem. But this doesn't sound like you. The switching passenger is the one who sometimes uses the left-hand armrest and then switches to the right. It's usually peaceful coexistence. Here, the communication remains friendly, with you exchanging smiles as you touch each other by accident. That's already closer to you, but not completely. There's also that shy passenger that uses neither the right nor the left side of the seat. He usually sits straight and awaits his arrival at the destination. He is afraid of any elbow contact with his neighbors, but he doesn't look like you either. The cooperative passenger constantly uses the front half of the armrest and shares the other part with a neighbor. So you know there's a spot for your elbow and your neighbors know theirs, and zero unnecessary contact is guaranteed. Aha! It sounds like you. Now, you place your elbows on both armrests by moving the arms of your neighbors, smiling and indicating that they need to share the joint space. Now, we will reveal the secret about how you got the middle seat. Your airline had to change the plane at the last minute, and an entirely different seating plan put you into the middle seat. It turns out, The flight editor could not keep your window seat anymore, as re-editing the seating plan within a short time is tough. Transporting everybody on board the new aircraft is like working on a puzzle. Another secret when they can assign a middle seat to you is if you get to the airport at the very last moment. If you've made no seat reservation and haven't checked in online, you're more likely to get a middle seat in the row next to the restroom. Or you'll be seated behind the wing and rewarded with extra noise from the engines. But you also have excellent chances to get a surprising upgrade or some extra space seated in the exit row or bulkhead seats. Algorithms drive our world these days, as you know. The secret here is that you need to use the same airline frequently. Then you will accumulate as many flight segments or miles as possible to become a status club member with pleasant privileges. And you will then be called the Gold One. Now, whenever you buy a ticket, your frequent flyer number will activate an algorithm in the reservation system. You'll be able to reserve an extra space seat online and get access to airport lounges. And even when the flight is not fully booked, the computer system will automatically block the middle seat next to yours. And you can enjoy spreading your arms and having no contact with a stranger during the whole flight. It can also come in handy to know how to get an upgrade at the last moment. Airlines regularly oversell seats on flights to maximize revenue and increase load factors. That's why they constantly analyze the number of no-show passengers for a certain time and date using a special software. It costs only $50 to $100 to an airline to upgrade an economy passenger to an empty seat in business or first class. That's why free airline upgrades can often happen. But for you, it's essential, especially if you're on a long flight. You will get your premium experience according to your priority status. It means that if you're on the gold list, you'll be of the highest priority ranking. Then the computer program will show the gate agent that your economy seat is no longer valid. The gate agent will change your seat number from 6A to 1A, and it means you can look forward to getting top service. And you will be the lucky one who gets a fancy drink, filet mignon, and a cozy seat on the more luxurious side of the cabin divider. Now, here's another secret. If you fly solo, you will have upgrades more often given to you rather than groups. If you order a special meal in advance, you will not get a free upgrade, as your meal cannot be upgraded with you. An airline controls the meal numbers and will not serve a special economy meal in business class. But you may as well get the upgrade if you are not a member of the Gold Club. Here's another algorithm that can help you get upgraded already at the check-in. A long-haul aircraft has, let's say, a total of 354 seats. We have 8 first-class seats, 42 business-class seats, and 304 economy-class seats. Now, let's assume there are 4 first-class passengers, 20 business-class passengers, and 330 economy-class passengers. The economy class is oversold by 26 people. Now, who will be the lucky 26 passengers to sit in the front, and when will it be decided? The airline supervisor instructs check-in agents to take notes of the arriving passengers, and they will silently put some of them into the SFU list. It means suitable for an upgrade. You will not notice your probable upgrade at that moment. At first, the check-in person will give you a standard economy class boarding pass with a seat number printed on it. It all begins 1 hour before the departure at the gate. That's when the check-in counter closes, and now the staff knows the final figures. Let's assume all 354 passengers appear on time. The last 26 economy passengers get their boarding passes without seat numbers, and the supervisor finalizes the passenger list. The first lucky 4 business class passengers with an upgrade can move to the first class, and 22 people from the economy class get upgraded to the business class. Now there's enough space in the economy class. New boarding passes get printed, and the gate supervisor announces the names of those who got lucky. That's why it's good to board late, because upgrades are still being processed up to the very last minute. By the way, check-in agents not only take your bag and give your boarding pass, they're also responsible for your admission to your destination on international flights. While talking to you at the counter, the agent gets a computer answer, an OK or a N OK to board. Thanks to the pre-checks at the departure airport, The international arrivals border control goes much faster as some work was already done at the departure point. And you usually appreciate it because, this way, you can leave the airport quickly after a several-hour flight. The check-in agent also ensures that passengers do not carry excess hand baggage. While boarding the plane, you're welcomed by a friendly smile and hello from one or two flight attendants. You might not know it, but at this moment, the chief cabin attendant is secretly checking you whether you are fit to fly or not. They pay particular attention to possibly aggressive passengers, those that might get removed before the flight. While you're taking your seat on board the plane, flight attendants are spread throughout the cabin. They welcome you and check that you don't stow any hand luggage at the exit or bulkhead row. During the meal service, flight attendants control what you drink and ensure you do not exceed a certain amount. Be careful, flight attendants are watching you, but only to keep you safe. That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.